Chapter 26. The usually calm Gu Beiyue's face was ashen. As the head imperial physician, he was the person closest to the emperor. Inside and outside the palace, there wasn't a single official who didn't respect him. Unfortunately, he was helpless against such an unreasonable princess. He hoped that General Mu would speak up for Han Yunqing. Unfortunately, General Mu was standing at the door, not saying a word. Han Yunqing couldn't be bothered to argue with Princess Changping and continued to ask, "Then may I ask, Princess Changping, do you have an arrest warrant?" When members of the imperial clan committed crimes, they were dealt with by the justice courts. However, if someone wanted to be arrested, they needed an arrest warrant. Han Yunqing was a Wang Fei and was under the jurisdiction of the Empress Dowager. Therefore, the arrest warrant had to be issued by the Empress Dowager. "Not at the moment," Princess Changping replied confidently. "So, I'm not considered a criminal for the time being?" Han Yunqing asked patiently. Princess Changping stammered, not knowing how to answer. Who knew that Han Yunqing would suddenly shout, "Not at the moment"? "What are you doing here? Get out of here right now." Without an arrest warrant, how could this princess be so arrogant in front of her? Changping was a princess, but she was also a Qin Wangfei. She was her elder, her imperial aunt. Princess Changping jumped in fright. She grabbed Han Yunqing's hand and said in disbelief, "Han Yunqing, you've got guts. You dare to be fierce to this princess and speak to this princess like this?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Han Yunqing coldly retorted, her eyes gloomy. As a physician, what she hated the most was having her treatment interrupted and her patients disturbed. As a woman, what she hated the most were people of the same sex who used their status to think they were a cut above others, bossy and unreasonable. Princess Changping was frightened by Han Yunqing's gloomy gaze. She hastily shook off her hand and retreated 2 steps. What was going on? She was actually afraid of this woman. Princess Changping tried her best to ignore the inexplicable fear in her heart. However, she refused to admit that she was here today to deal with Han Yunqing, not to lose face. She flew into a rage out of humiliation. She approached Han Yunqing and yelled, "Han Yunqing, why are you so arrogant? Aren't you just a piece of trash? Aren't you just a woman who delivered herself to my doorstep? Do you really think that you've become a phoenix? Let me tell you, trash will always be trash. A sparrow will always be a sparrow. Even if you really think of yourself as a scallion, others might not necessarily eat you for dipping sauce. Bitch. Bitch." Princess Changping emphasized these 2 words, as if she was pointing at Han Yunqing's nose and cursing her. Han Yunqing's face was pale. Her hands were clenched into fists. She almost hit someone. However, she was still calm. She knew that now was not the time to cause trouble, but the time to save people. Her current identity was a doctor. In these 3 days, once the poison in Mu Qingwu's body broke out, he had to be treated in time. No accidents were allowed to happen. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. "Princess Changping, you said I'm trash because I don't know medicine. Then may I ask, do you know medicine?" At these words, Princess Changping was at a loss for words. Han Yunqing exhaled again. How much patience did she have? For the sake of the patient, she was willing to throw caution to the wind. "So, Princess Changping, I'll have to trouble you to speak more respectfully. Also, this Wang Fei is still your imperial aunt. Is shouting and yelling at your elders something you should have etiquette for? I'll say it one last time. Please leave and don't disturb the patient." An imperial aunt was indeed a princess's senior, but in terms of status, the princess naturally respected her imperial aunt. However, things were different in Tianning. Princess Changping's imperial uncle was the Duke of Qin, and Han Yunqing was Qin Wangfei. The Duke of Qin wasn't someone ordinary imperial relatives could compare to. Even the emperor had to give him some face. A wife valued her husband. In terms of seniority and status, Han Yunqing had enough qualifications to teach Princess Changping a lesson. However, Princess Changping gave a start before bursting into laughter. Imperial aunt? Han Yunqing, you really have no shame. My imperial uncle didn't want you. It was a shameless woman like you who delivered yourself to his door. You dare to call this princess an imperial aunt? You're worse than a prostitute. Prostitute? At these words, everyone present sucked in a cold breath. But before they could recover their wits, Han Yunqing suddenly raised her hand and ruthlessly slapped Princess Changping across the face. Pa! What a resounding slap. Unbearable, there was no need to endure. Uncle could endure, but aunt couldn't. When faced with someone like Princess Changping, enduring was useless. Reasoning was also useless. If you could use your hands, then don't use your mouth. Han Yunqing had completely exploded. Princess Changping was instantly dumbfounded. A large patch of red appeared on her delicate, white cheeks. It was obvious how heavy Han Yunqing's slap had been. Around them, even Mu Luiyue, who'd been watching the show from the sidelines, was dumbfounded. Heavens, Han Yunqing, this woman, she really dared. Very quickly, Princess Changping regained her wits and started bawling. Like a madwoman, she pounced towards Han Yunqing. You slut, you dare hit this princess. This princess will fight it out with you. Even Imperial Mother hasn't hit me before. Who do you think you are? Han Yunqing, you slut, you prostitute. Han Yunqing accurately grabbed Princess Changping's hands. Unable to bear it any longer, she sternly interrupted her insults. Enough. Spouting such vulgar words at such a young age. How did your imperial mother raise you? How did she become your mother? Hearing these words, Princess Changping froze. Heavens, this woman hit her and still dared to speak ill of her imperial mother? Han Yunqing, you've got dog guts. Princess Changping roared, fiercely struggling. Unfortunately, she couldn't break free from Han Yunqing's grip. Guards! Guards, capture her! Quickly! Princess Changping shouted. Her two attendants were about to step forward when Han Yunqing glared at them. You dare to capture Qin Wangfei? Have you asked His Highness the Duke of Qin? Who gave you the guts to do that? The Duke of Qin, her husband, this name was a golden shield no matter where it was. The two attendants hesitated. Princess Changping was furious. Han Yunqing, let go of me or I'll tell Imperial Father. Han Yunqing coldly snorted and flung Princess Changping to the side. Go ahead. I'll sit here and wait for His Highness the Duke of Qin to bring me there. Princess Changping bumped into a nearby table, tears flowing down her cheeks. Her face was red with anger. How could she dare to go find Imperial Father? Imperial Father had always disapproved of her marrying Mu Qinggu and hated it when she ran over to General Mu's estate. Moreover, if the Duke of Qin found out about this, she might not be able to get away with it. Princess Changping covered her face and fiercely said, Han Yunqing, you dare to hit me? I definitely won't let you off. So speaking, she stomped her foot and turned to run out of the room. The two retainers and Mu Luiyue hurried after her. Unexpectedly, they closed the door behind them and locked Han Yunqing inside. What was going on? Han Yunqing, just you wait. Just you wait. Don't even think about taking half a step out of this room. This princess will definitely make you pay the price. Princess Changping's clamoring came from outside the door. Han Yunqing looked at the tightly shut door with a gloomy expression. What era was this? How could she still save someone? Very quickly, Princess Changping's voice disappeared. She didn't know if she'd left or not, but the room finally quieted down. Han Yunqing exhaled a mouthful of turbid air as her eyes turned dark and gloomy. A complicated look flitted across Gu Beiyue's eyes. Esteemed Wangfei, that slap just now, she deserved it. Han Yunqing angrily said. Fine, at this moment, she was in a very bad mood. Who would be happy to be called a prostitute? It was true that she'd taken the initiative to visit, but she'd been forced to do so. She'd never thought of herself as noble and had never thought of herself as the Duke of Qin's official wife. However, she still had self-respect. She felt that she was very good, magnanimous, and had a clear conscience. She wasn't the least bit inferior. However, Gu Beiyue said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, that slap was well done. It's just that Princess Changping said that there was no arrest warrant." Han Yunqing was slightly startled. She'd fainted from anger and hadn't paid attention to this detail. She looked at the tightly locked door again. Could it be, whether it was a blessing or a curse, it couldn't be avoided. Han Yunqing didn't care so much. She drank a mouthful of water and returned to the bedside to keep watch. "Imperial Physician Gu, as long as you believe me, it's enough." She observed Mu Qingwu's complexion, took his pulse, checked his temperature, and did another blood test for poison. She was very sure that in the next 3 days, the poison would definitely show itself. She told Gu Beiyue everything she knew. However, just as she finished speaking, the door opened. The voice of the Supreme Court's Minister Bai Gong drifted in. "Qin Wangfei, this is an arrest warrant personally issued by the Empress Dowager. Someone has reported that you deliberately tried to harm young General Mu Qingwu's life. Please come with this official." The Supreme Court's people had arrived. As expected, Princess Changping hadn't come empty-handed. She'd already made preparations. She'd already steeled her heart to throw Han Yunqing into the imperial prison. However, for the Empress Dowager to personally issue an arrest warrant, wasn't this too ruthless? What was an arrest warrant? An arrest warrant meant that there was enough evidence to arrest someone. There was no need to tell the person the reason for their arrest. Once they were locked up, they could slowly interrogate them. No matter what, Han Yunqing was still the daughter of her savior. Was the Empress Dowager that impatient to get rid of her? Moreover, the Supreme Court didn't have any evidence to prove that Han Yunqing was an assassin. It was a misdiagnosis. This was clearly using public office to avenge a private grudge. Gu Beiyue had already expected this, but he still couldn't help sighing. Nonsense. Han Yunqing took a deep breath. She was very calm. She knew that this was power that made people unable to refute it. She knew that if she wanted to live peacefully in this world, she had to obey and listen to orders. However, she couldn't learn it. She personally opened the door and walked out. She saw the North Court official and Princess Changping standing at the door with 5 or 6 soldiers behind them. Han Yunqing ignored Princess Changping's smugness and coldly looked at the North Court official. "Dare I ask the North Court official, what crime did this Princess Consort commit? Someone is accusing you of attempting to assassinate the young General Mu Qingwu, swindling the general's household, and poisoning the young general in the name of treatment." The North Court official loudly replied, making it sound as if it really was the case. "It's pure slander. North Court official, I can prove that the Princess Consort is innocent. I also participated in the treatment." Gu Beiyue was very righteous. The North Court official coldly snorted. "You don't need to say anything. This is the Empress Dowager's arrest warrant." The Empress Dowager is very concerned about this matter and personally issued the arrest warrant. "Qin Wangfei, if you have anything to say, go to the Supreme Court and cooperate with the investigation. If any of you want to testify, please go to the Supreme Court for the record." North Court official. Gu Beiyue still wanted to explain, but the North Court official raised his hand to indicate that there was no need. "Dr. Gu, there's no point in saying more. You're a servant in the palace, so you should be very clear on what an arrest warrant is." Gu Beiyue could only shut his mouth. He looked at the silent Han Yunqing with her head lowered. His warm eyes were filled with heartache. This woman who wholeheartedly wanted to save people, what crime did she commit? Seeing the disappointment in Han Yunqing's eyes, Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue felt smug. They were waiting for her to be disappointed, for her to flip out, for her to shout that she was wronged. Chapter 27. Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue were waiting to see Han Yunqing make a fool of herself. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqing didn't. She raised her head, her eyes clear and calm. She looked at Gu Beiyue, and at the same time at the silent, black-faced General Mu. Great General, Imperial Physician Gu, you should all be clear about the young general's situation. My life and the young general's life are intertwined, you should all understand. Gu Beiyue naturally understood Han Yunqing's meaning. General Mu avoided her gaze, looking to the side. Seeing this, Han Yunqing smiled faintly, raising her brows as she looked towards the North Court official. North Court official, let's go. Saying this, her expression was calm and light. She didn't need anyone to escort her, turning to leave. Han Yunqing actually, everyone looked at each other, extremely surprised. Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue had originally wanted to attack her, but who knew that in the end, they were the ones feeling disappointed, not feeling the slightest bit of joy from revenge. This woman was different. She had a strength of character that no woman in the capital had. She was open and magnanimous, daring to take responsibility for her actions. How could it be so easy to humiliate her and attack her? Seeing that no one followed, Han Yunqing paused, calmly turning around. What are you all standing around for? Let's go. The North Court official and his subordinates looked at each other in disbelief, only recovering after a while. Seeing Han Yunqing's ramrod straight back, the North Court official couldn't help but reveal a look of admiration. He'd arrested many criminals of the imperial clan, and which one of them hadn't cried and begged? He'd never seen such a proud woman. She wouldn't lose to a man. It was a pity that such a special woman's fate was in the hands of the Empress Dowager. After going to the justice courts, it wouldn't be so easy for Han Yunqing to leave. Once she was taken away, Princess Changping rolled her eyes at Gu Beiyue. Coldly, she said, General Mu, look at what kind of quack you've invited. Chase him away immediately. I've invited a few godly doctors over. As she spoke, the attendant brought in a few doctors. General Mu did not recognize any of them, but he was anxious about his son's illness. He hurriedly invited the doctors in and left Gu Beiyue hanging at the side. Of course, Gu Beiyue knew the people in the circle very well. He was very clear about the abilities of these few doctors. Even he couldn't treat him, let alone these few doctors. At this time, General Mu and Princess Changping wouldn't listen to advice. Gu Beiyue hurriedly left. The only person who could save Mu Qinggu was Han Yunqing. Now, the only people who could save Han Yunqing from the Supreme Court were the Duke of Qin's people. Actually, it was not that Gu Beiyue had never thought of entering the palace to meet the emperor, but it was not appropriate for him to report such matters to the emperor. Moreover, the emperor's attitude was not clear. Mu Qingwu's situation was very urgent. If the poison flared up and Han Yunqing wasn't present, then his life would be in danger. It would be strange if General Mu and Princess Changping didn't accuse Han Yunqing of poisoning him then. Gu Beiyue made a prompt decision to leave the general's estate and head for the Duke of Qin's estate. Unexpectedly, he was told that neither Grand Concubine Yi nor the Duke of Qin were present. Miss Murong, did that Grand Concubine Yi say where she went? Gu Beiyue asked urgently. He knew it wasn't easy to ask about the Duke of Qin's whereabouts. Murong Wanru might not know either, but Grand Concubine Yi should be able to find her, right? Murong Wanru hated it when people called her Miss Murong, but many people in the capital called her that. The surname Murong was a constant reminder that she was only an adopted daughter. No matter how much she hated it, she hid it well. Her lovable face revealed traces of worry. Such a big thing happened as soon as they got married. If Mu Fei knew, she'd definitely be angry. Say, she doesn't know anything about medicine, so how could she? Miss Murong, Qin Wangfei is innocent. This one can testify, but... Gu Beiyue told Murong Wanru the truth of the situation. Murong Wanru was doubtful. Even the calm and gentle imperial physician Gu had a side to him that burned with impatience. Supposedly, he was always calm and collected when dealing with the emperor's illness. Murong Wanru pretended to be angry. How could General Mu be like this? How did things get to the Empress Dowager's ears? This is a matter of life and death. I ask that Miss Murong quickly take this one to see Grand Concubine Yi. It'll be hard to get out of a place like the justice courts, Gu Beiyue couldn't help but urge. This Miss Murong looked impatient, but didn't make any moves. Mu Fei doesn't like to be disturbed when she's cultivating. How about this, Imperial Physician Gu, you go back first and ask about the situation. I'll go find Mu Fei and have her come up with ideas. Murong Wanru finally expressed her intentions. Gu Beiyue nodded, finally releasing a breath. He was afraid to delay Murong Wanru, so he didn't dare to linger and bid farewell. But Murong Wanru didn't leave immediately. She sat upright in the guest hall's master seat, languid and leisurely as her lips drew up in a disdainful sneer. After being smug for a while, she calmly swept her eyes over the servant girls in the room. Her soft and gentle appearance was replaced by a cold eyebrow. Whoever speaks of today's matters, bear the consequences. The servant girls all trembled as they knelt down. Miss, don't worry. Your servant understands. Murong Wanru would rather Han Yunqing never come back, so how could she go find Grand Concubine Yi? Before, when General Mu came to her door, she was worried that she wouldn't have a chance to hit Han Yunqing while she was down. Now things were good, saving her a lot of trouble. After stretching lazily, Murong Wanru went back to her rooms to sleep. She'd been disturbed twice in one night, so she needed to make up for lost sleep. By now, the skies were already dimly lit. Han Yunqing had just arrived at the Justice Court's prisons, which were cold and gloomy to begin with. Add that to the fact that it was winter, and it was frighteningly cold. Han Yunqing had rushed out in a hurry. She wasn't wearing much to begin with, so she immediately yawned as soon as she stepped out of the prison. The deeper she went, the more she felt like she was in a giant freezer. It was so cold that she couldn't help but shiver. Because of her special status, she was locked up in a single cell with 3 stone walls and an iron bar. It could be considered clean enough that she could barely live in it. The cell door slammed shut, and Han Yunqing quickly curled up on the Kong bed to warm herself. So cold. She hated the cold the most. Thank goodness there was such a good thing as a Kong bed. After a long while, her body slowly warmed up. She didn't know how long she'd have to stay in this damned place. Even if Mu Qinggu woke up, the justice courts had already filed a case. The investigation, evidence collection, and interrogation would all be delayed by a single word from the higher-ups. In any case, it would be very, very difficult to get out after entering this place. Han Yunqing figured that only Grand Concubine Yi and Long Fei Yi could save her. Long Fei Yi would definitely find her within the next few days to prescribe medicine. No matter how much Grand Concubine Yi disliked her, she wouldn't yield to the Empress Dowager so easily. Most likely, the Empress Dowager had personally issued an arrest warrant because she wanted to compete with Grand Concubine Yi over this matter. In the end, she was still too inexperienced. She should have known that the Empress Dowager wouldn't let her off so easily after she'd followed Long Fei Yi into the palace to pay her respects that day. The Empress Dowager wanted to use her as an ugly woman to humiliate Grand Concubine Yi, but she ended up becoming beautiful. She wanted to use her white handkerchief to punish the Han family, but Long Fei Yi had helped her. Wouldn't the old Empress Dowager hate her to the bone? Thinking up to here, Han Yunqing couldn't help but shiver. How unlucky was she to have offended the 2 most frightening women in Tianing country, the Empress Dowager and Grand Concubine Yi. All right, no matter what, she still had her status as Qin Wangfei before she was convicted. The justice courts shouldn't dare to use torture to extort a confession. Thinking up to here, Han Yunqing felt more at ease with her current situation. She was more worried about Mu Qingwu's condition. She was certain that Mu Qinggu would wake up within the next 3 days. But if he didn't treat the poison in time, then it'd be troublesome. If Mu Qinggu didn't treat the poison in time, then even Long Fei Yi wouldn't be able to save her little life if he came in person. Now that things had come to this, Mu Qinggu's life and hers were completely intertwined. 3 days could be described as slow, but it could also be described as fast in the blink of an eye. Imperial Physician Gu should be coming to visit her, right? All her hopes rested on his shoulders. After a tiring day and night, Han Yunqing mulled things over until she fell into a deep sleep. But it wasn't long before she was awoken by the cold from her feet. No matter how she wrapped herself in the blankets or curled up, she couldn't warm up. She discovered that the firewood in the Kong bed had already burned out. The fire had long been extinguished, and there was no spare firewood in the cell. Too much. Wrapping herself in the thin blankets, Han Yunqing yawned multiple times before getting off the bed to call for help. Someone, come. Is there anyone? Someone, come. There was no reply from the night guard, so Han Yunqing decided to lie. Help, there's an assassin. But no matter how much she shouted, the only response she got was her own echo. Exhaling, Han Yunqing didn't waste her energy. She kept rubbing her hands as she jumped up and down to keep warm. In the Supreme Court's prison, there were many ways to kill people without spilling blood or torture without injuring them. Even if they didn't do anything, there were still many ways to lock people up. Han Yunqing found that she had underestimated the dark side of the Supreme Court. While Han Yunqing was jumping up and down to keep warm, she suddenly heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Han Yunqing was about to turn around, but who would have thought that at this time, she would be met with a bucket of ice water. Han Yunqing was completely soaked from head to toe. The bone-chilling cold spread from her scalp down to her 4 limbs, freezing her to the point where she couldn't move for a long time. Outside the cell, Princess Changping was wrapped in a warm quilted jacket. She was smiling from ear to ear as she proudly looked at Han Yunqing. The North Court official and several jailers were respectfully waiting on the side. Princess Changping, do you dare to torture this princess? Han Yunqing coldly asked. Her entire body was soaked and she cut a sorry figure, but her clear eyes were even colder than the surrounding temperature. She clearly knew that this woman couldn't resist, but as soon as she met her eyes, Princess Changping's heart trembled. No. With Imperial Grandmother and Imperial Mother supporting her, no one would dare to spread what happened here. Han Yunqing wouldn't have any evidence. Thinking of this, Princess Changping calmed down and sneered, Han Yunqing, you think too highly of this princess. This princess knows that you're the imperial aunt and can't wait to show filial piety to you. See, I specifically came here to urge the North Court official to help you wash your cell. I heard that many people have died of disease here. It's very dirty. Washing the cell in the middle of the night? Only she could think of such a thing. No need. Han Yunqing naturally refused, but the North Court official impatiently ordered, come, why aren't you washing it immediately? If you treat Qin Wangfei unfairly, can you bear the responsibility? As soon as he finished speaking, 4 to 5 jailers lifted buckets of water. There were even pieces of ice floating in the water. Pour it for this princess. Princess Changping didn't hesitate as she coldly ordered. The cold water mixed with pieces of ice splashed in from different directions. Han Yunqing could only dodge. At this time, any warning would be useless. She turned and fled, hiding in the innermost corner of the Kong bed. She ran back and forth, trying her best to dodge. However, the jailers were all well trained. One by one, they all poured water on her body. None of them hit. Chapter 28. The jailers splashed her with bucket after bucket of ice water. Streams of ice-cold water trickled down from her neck to her body, making the already soaked Han Yunqing's hands and feet tremble and her teeth chatter. Aya, how can you be so careless? Don't splash it on Qin Wangfei. Look at how pitiful she is. Princess Changping laughed loudly. Han Yunqing, hurry and beg them. Ha, how about you beg me? Beg me to slap you and I'll let you out. That's right, Princess Changping was here tonight for revenge. Who did Han Yunqing think she was? She dared to touch her Qinggu Gij, dared to talk about seniority and teach her a lesson in front of everyone. Tonight, she would make this slut pay the price. Splash it with all your might. Splash it until she begs for mercy. Glancing at the thin layer of ice on the ground, Princess Changping believed that Han Yunqing would soon beg for mercy. However, Princess Changping was quickly disappointed. Not only did Han Yunqing not beg for mercy, she didn't even try to dodge. She just stood on the brick bed, her back against the wall, motionless, staring at her. At this moment, Han Yunqing was in a sorry state, like a drowning dog. However, at this very moment, she was even more beautiful than before. Her purplish lips curled up and her clear eyes were filled with mockery. At this very moment, she was staring at Princess Changping from a lofty position. What are you laughing at? You're not allowed to look. Princess Changping angrily questioned. The one being toyed with was clearly Han Yunqing, but why did she feel humiliated? Han Yunqing, you're not allowed to look. Close your eyes. Han Yunqing, I'm telling you, if you don't beg for mercy today, I definitely won't let you off. North Court official, open the door. Princess Changping was furious. She wanted to go in and personally deal with this slut. Princess, you can't do this. After all, she's someone from the Duke of Qin's household. The North Court official was still somewhat apprehensive. Otherwise, he would have already tortured Han Yunqing. She's now a prisoner. I order you to open the door immediately. Princess Changping huffed, not forgetting to order the jailer to continue pouring water. Han Yunqing coldly watched as Princess Changping hooted like a mad dog. The contempt in her eyes deepened, driving Princess Changping to the brink of insanity. He's of the North Court, how dare you disobey my orders? Why aren't you opening the door? The North Court official didn't know whether to open the door or not. In the cold weather, he was sweating profusely. In the end, under Princess Changping's coercion, he could only open the door. A few jailers rushed in first, holding Han Yunqing tightly. Han Yunqing didn't resist, only feeling that it was laughable. Were these people afraid that she would do anything to Princess Changping? She was so cold that she had no strength left. Princess Changping crossed her arms and calmly walked over. Han Yunqing, keep looking. If you have the ability, keep looking. Han Yunqing lowered her head, not moving at all, like a corpse. Princess Changping was very satisfied with this kind of reaction. She personally lifted Han Yunqing's chin, but Han Yunqing actually spat a mouthful of ice water in her face. Ah! Princess Changping shrieked as she retreated, wiping her face. Slut! You've got guts. This Wang Fei's seniority is one level higher than yours, so I'm your elder. Princess Changping, you'll never be able to change this fact. Han Yunqing looked over, a mocking smile on her lips. It wasn't that she wasn't afraid of death, but that she knew that even if she begged for mercy, Princess Changping wouldn't let her off so easily tonight. Begging for mercy would only add to the humiliation and satisfy Princess Changping's wishes. Princess Changping wiped her face dry, smudging her makeup. Combined with her fierce expression, she looked like a tigress. Elder, is it? Very good, then this princess will personally serve you. As she spoke, she personally picked up a bucket of water and poured it over Han Yunqing's head. Han Yunqing's body shrank back, a cold feeling spreading from her head to her four limbs. She felt as if her brain cells had all been frozen, her mind blank. However, the nightmare had only just begun. Very quickly, Princess Changping picked up another bucket of water and poured it over Han Yunqing's head as well. Bucket after bucket, she didn't stop until all the ice water had been used up. The two jailers holding Han Yunqing had their hands frozen stiff, so how could Han Yunqing? However, she was still looking at Princess Changping, like an ice sculpture. Cold and motionless, she stared at Princess Changping as if she could see through all the vanity and filth in Princess Changping's heart. This gaze not only scared Princess Changping, but the jailers as well. The two jailers let go, causing Han Yunqing to topple straight to the ground, her stiff body making a loud thud as she hit the ground. Dead? He of the North Court's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly checked her breathing. Seeing that she was still breathing, his heart, which had been hanging high in the air, finally calmed down. Princess Changping looked at Han Yunqing's stiff body. Not only did she not feel the joy of revenge, she actually felt an indescribable fear. She clearly knew that this woman couldn't do anything, but she was still afraid. She didn't even dare to look at Han Yunqing's face. She gave herself a way out. Humph, Han Yunqing, if you dare to be arrogant again, then this princess might as well tell you that even if Qinggu Gij wakes up, you can forget about leaving the justice court. You're dead for sure. After speaking, Princess Changping hurriedly turned to leave. However, she hadn't taken more than a few steps when her foot slipped and her body leaned forward. Her entire body fell forward, like a dog eating shit. Ah! Princess Changping's scream was deafening. He of the North Court and a few other attendants hurriedly came forward to support her, their faces ashen from fright. As soon as Princess Changping sat up, she screamed, "My waist! My waist! Don't move, my waist hurts so much." "Princess, it can't be that you got hurt, right?" He of the North Court cried out. If her waist was hurt, it would be very difficult to recover. Moreover, there would be repercussions. In the future, if she moved a bit more, it would be easy to get hurt again. Princess Changping was scared out of her wits. Her waist hurt and she sat on the icy ground, but she didn't dare to move. She angrily shouted at He of the North Court, "Hurry and summon an imperial physician." As she spoke, she suddenly felt an itch on her face. She didn't think much of it and reached out to scratch randomly. As she scratched, she couldn't seem to stop. "Your Highness, how about this subordinate carry you out? It's not convenient for an imperial physician to come." He of the North Court was on the verge of tears. If the imperial physician was summoned here, wouldn't the matter of private punishment be exposed? Princess Changping's waist was in extreme pain. She sat stiffly on the icy ground, not daring to move. The icy water had soaked her pants and spread throughout her body. Not only did she want to cry out in pain, she also wanted to cry out in cold. However, this icy water was caused by her. How could she cry out? "Then hurry and carry me out." What are you all standing there for? What's the point of raising you all? Are you all rice buckets? Princess Changping yelled as she scratched herself. All of her anger could only be directed at the North Court official. The North Court official's face was covered in dirt. He hurriedly ordered the jailers to bring over a stretcher. He carefully placed Princess Changping on it and hurriedly carried her out. Before leaving, Princess Changping turned her head and saw Han Yunqing lying motionlessly on the ground. Those cold phoenix eyes were actually still looking at her. Heavens! Princess Changping hurriedly turned her head back, not daring to look again. She felt a bit of regret. She shouldn't have walked in. Only then did Han Yunqing's lips curve up into a cold smile. Her smile was peerless and peerless, capable of causing the downfall of cities and nations. "Princess Changping, just wait for your face to be disfigured." In the instant she laid down, she'd poisoned Princess Changping's feet. That was why Princess Changping had slipped so easily. Slipping wasn't a big deal, but the poison would cause Princess Changping's feet and face to grow a type of poisonous ringworm similar to psoriasis. It was even more disgusting than the tumors on her face. After confirming that everyone had left, Han Yunqing couldn't hold it in any longer. Her entire body trembled violently, and even her teeth chattered. Her nose felt sour. She was so cold that she wanted to cry, so weak that she wanted to cry. The cold water on the ground had already formed a thin layer of ice. There were even several parts of her body that were frozen. Just how low was her body temperature? Han Yunqing didn't even have the strength to crawl up. However, even if she did, it was useless. The entire cell was wet and icy. If it continued like this, all of her bodily functions would become sluggish. At this moment, she dearly wished that a doctor would come and give her a few injections to increase her heart rate. She was a doctor, but not an ordinary one. She only had poison and an antidote on her. With no other choice, Han Yunqing could only take out a poison pill from her detoxification system. It was a poison of dry heat. It could cause the body to become restless and cause the body's temperature to rise. Although it was very harmful to the body, Han Yunqing had no other choice. After taking the pill, she lost all of her strength and laid on the ground. The poison quickly took effect. The heat emitted from her body resisted the invading cold. Between the cold and the heat, Han Yunqing fell into a deep sleep. It seemed that someone had come to clean the ice in the cell, or checked her breathing and pulse. Han Yunqing felt it in her daze, but she didn't have the strength to open her eyes. By the time Han Yunqing woke up, it was already the evening of the next day. She didn't need an antidote for the poison of dry heat. It had been completely dispelled by the cold. Although she was no longer in danger, she was still shivering from the cold. She really wanted to take another poison pill, but she knew better than anyone that the second one would definitely take her life. Looking around, Han Yunqing found that all the traces from last night had been cleaned up. There was a fire in the stove and there was a warm meal and clean clothes on the side. What was the meaning of this? Han Yunqing was confused, but then she saw Gu Beiyue appear at the door of the cell carrying something. So it was it. The North Palace official was afraid that Gu Beiyue would see the evidence of the lynching, so he destroyed all the traces. He really did a good job on the surface. When the guard leading the way left, Gu Beiyue quickly waved his hand at Han Yunqing. "Princess Consort, quickly come over." He quickly squatted down and opened the soup cup. He carefully poured the hot soup into a bowl and placed it in front of Han Yunqing through the bars. "Princess Consort, quickly drink it while it's hot. This official personally made it. It's cold in here, so this medicinal soup can dispel the cold." Gu Beiyue was a very clean person. His white clothes were pure and he had a handsome temperament. He didn't fit in with this cold and dark cell, but seeing him, Han Yunqing felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. Han Yunqing walked over and saw the sincere concern and pity on Gu Beiyue's handsome face. Then she looked at the steam coming out of the hot soup. Her heart ached and she felt uncomfortable for no reason. Everything from last night had already passed, but she couldn't help feeling wronged. Would a strong heart become weak once there was someone who cared for it? Was this place cold? This place wasn't just cold, it was so cold that it could kill a person. Dispelling the cold? A bowl of hot soup, how could it compare to last night's buckets of ice water? However, this man who she had no relationship with actually made Han Yunqing feel warm with just a few words. Since she was young, no one had ever cared about her, let alone personally making a bowl of soup to dispel the cold. Chapter 29. Gu Beiyue's smile was as warm as an April spring breeze. Han Yunqing suddenly felt that his eyes were especially beautiful, especially when he smiled. He was like a big brother next door, warm and affectionate. "Imperial Physician Gu, you're considerate." Han Yunqing accepted the hot soup and drank it all in one gulp. Needless to say, the medicine was quite effective. Soon enough, her body warmed up. Gu Beiyue watched Han Yunqing wolf down her food and her ashen face. He could more or less guess at last night's punishment, but didn't ask any questions. Pity flashed through his eyes as he sighed softly. Visiting hours were limited, so before Han Yunqing could finish, Gu Beiyue said in a low voice, "Esteemed Wang Fei, this official personally went to the Duke of Qin's estate last night. I didn't see Grand Concubine Yi, but I've already had Miss Murong report to her. Presumably, you'll be released on bail very soon. This official will arrange for people to visit you at regular intervals. This way. Gu Beiyue trailed off even more. This way, they won't dare to lynch you. Han Yunqing looked at Gu Beiyue and asked without thinking, why? Why was this man doing his best? Actually, he could have stayed out of this. Didn't he know that if he got involved, he'd be suspected of being an accomplice? Gu Beiyue didn't understand. What do you mean why? Why are you helping me so much? I'm not familiar with you, Han Yunqing said mildly. But Gu Beiyue was very serious. Esteemed Wang Fei, doctors don't just rely on their medical skills to save people. The young general's life is in your hands. Gu Beiyue's tone softened as he continued, moreover, esteemed Wang Fei, this is a human life, too. Han Yunqing's heart gave a lurch as she praised him in her heart. She even felt inferior to him. Wouldn't Murong Wanru report to Grand Concubine Yi? Han Yunqing didn't want Gu Beiyue to lose confidence, so she didn't explain much. She asked indifferently, how's the situation at the great general's residence? Last night, Princess Changping invited several divine doctors over, but none of them were of any use. This morning, General Mu invited this lowly official over, but the young general is still the same. This lowly official tried to persuade General Mu, but unfortunately, how is the young general? Han Yunqing was most concerned about this matter. It's still the same. I'm just afraid. If the poison is suppressed forever, then wouldn't esteemed Wang Fei, Gu Beiyue didn't continue, but Han Yunqing knew what he was worried about. If Mu Qingwu's toxicity never showed, then even Long Fei Yi might not be able to clear her name. After a moment of silence, Han Yunqing asked seriously, Imperial Physician Gu, even you don't believe me, right? It wasn't that Gu Beiyue didn't believe her, but it was better to be safe than sorry. It's already been a day. Within 2 days, the young general's toxicity will show. As long as the poison is cured, he'll wake up. Help me watch over him. Tell me as soon as the poison shows. Han Yunqing's eyes shone with a resolute light. She grabbed Gu Beiyue's hand and said seriously, I won't joke around with my own life. Only you can help me now. Gu Beiyue unconsciously lowered his head, a little surprised. Seeing Han Yunqing's clear eyes, he smiled faintly. His large, warm hand covered Han Yunqing's cold one as he said seriously, all right, I'll do my best. Han Yunqing was delighted. If it was anyone else, she'd be worried. Only then did she let go of his hand. Naturally, there was nothing to hold. Remember, check him frequently. As soon as the poison shows, take his blood and give it to me. Take blood? Gu Beiyue didn't quite understand. Han Yunqing took out a golden needle, here, use this golden needle to take the blood from the wound on his navel. Gu Beiyue naturally knew how to take blood to test for poison, but there were no tools or other drugs in the cell. How could Han Yunqing detect it? Seeing Gu Beiyue's hesitation, Han Yunqing smiled faintly, Imperial Physician Gu, there are only 2 days left. If I'm acquitted, I'll tell you why. He didn't expect Han Yunqing to still be able to smile in this situation. Gu Beiyue admired her in his heart. He also smiled and stretched out his pinky. Han Yunqing was stunned. Did this guy also play retractor? I'm really curious. Gu Beiyue smiled slightly. It was extremely beautiful. Han Yunqing stretched out her pinky and held on to him, all right, it's a promise. Gu Beiyue looked at Han Yunqing and felt that she was a mystery. Although this woman's medical skills weren't as good as Master Han's, her detoxification skills were far superior to her father's. He wondered if the Han family knew about this. When he left this morning, he heard from the servants that Princess Changping and Miss Mu had gone to the Han family to invite the head of the Han family. That day, when Gu Beiyue rushed back to General Mu's residence, Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue had already invited the head of the Han family, Han Yunqing's father, godly Dr. Han Kangen. When Gu Beiyue entered the room, Han Kangen was taking Mu Qingwu's pulse. When he saw him enter, Han Kangen stood up and cupped his hands in greeting, Imperial Physician Gu. Although he was Gu Beiyue's junior in front of Han Kangen, a commoner like Han Kangen still had to pay respects to Gu Beiyue's status as the head imperial physician. Han Kangen's medical skills were exquisite and he'd studied at Cloud Realm Continent's Medical Academy. Last year, he'd become a director of the Medical Academy, so the position of head imperial physician should have been his. Unfortunately, he'd been unable to treat the Crown Prince's strange illness for many years. In the end, he couldn't even enter the Imperial Physician courtyard, becoming the Medical Academy director that the Imperial clan disliked the most in history. Gu Beiyue's parents had both died when he was young, so he was brought up by his grandfather. Grandfather Gu was the former head imperial physician and director of Cloud Realm Continent's Medical Academy. Gu Beiyue had been gifted since childhood. With his grandfather's careful guidance, he truly deserved the position of head imperial physician. Uncle Han is treating me as an outsider, Gu Beiyue cupped his hands in return. He was a modest gentleman, neither servile nor overbearing, cultured and refined. Han Kangen didn't stand on ceremony and sat down, asking, "You came at the right time. Tell me the specifics of the situation." "Uncle Han, why don't you tell me your views first so that my words won't affect your judgment?" Gu Beiyue looked refined and modest, but his words always had the effect of deflecting 1,000 caddies with 4 tails. Since he'd said this, Han Kangen didn't press the issue. He stroked his goatee and said seriously, "I've heard General Mu explain the general situation, but I think there's room for discussion about the poisoning." Gu Beiyue didn't express his opinion, but asked mildly, "How do you want to discuss it?" Han Kangen's eyes flashed with doubt as he probed, "I heard that Yunxi was the one who diagnosed the poisoning." Actually, before Princess Changping invited him over, the Empress Dowager had already sent someone to greet him. Although she didn't tell him what to do, he knew everything in his heart. Han Yunqing was already in jail. As long as Mu Qingwu was unconscious for a day, Han Yunqing wouldn't be able to clear herself of suspicion and would have to stay in jail for a day. This was exactly what the Empress Dowager wanted to see. Moreover, Mu Qingwu held military power in his hands and was both a minister and friend to the second imperial prince. He completely stood on the second imperial prince's side, and the second imperial prince was the crown prince's strongest opponent. If Mu Qingwu was unconscious or even dead, the crown prince's faction would be the happiest. Even if it concerned his own daughter's life, Han Kangen didn't mind pushing the boat with the current to help the Empress Dowager and Crown Prince frame Han Yunqing for the sake of preserving the Han family's position. He took his pulse for a long time and couldn't find any signs of illness or poisoning. But since Han Yunqing had treated him, no matter how Mu Qingwu died, she had to take responsibility until the end. "Then what does Uncle Han think?" Gu Beiyue asked again, not expressing his opinion at all. As a servant by the emperor's side, he knew all the powerful connections in the imperial harem. The more he knew, the more disadvantageous it would be for himself and Han Yunqing. Han Kangen was an old fox and didn't express his opinion. He reprimanded, "Ai, this girl has been ignorant and incompetent since she was young. What does she know? I heard that she was the one who used the knife to detoxify the wound." Han Kangen had examined the wound and found that it had healed very well. It wasn't something an ordinary person could do. If Princess Changping hadn't said it, he wouldn't have believed that it was Han Yunqing's doing. How did she do it? She was trash who couldn't even differentiate between medicinal ingredients. Since Uncle Han has examined the wound, you should know that the young general's illness isn't directly related to the wound, right? Gu Beiyue countered. Han Kangen stroked his goatee and hesitated for a moment before saying indifferently, "This might not be so. After all, we still can't diagnose the illness." In that instant, a trace of caution flashed through Gu Beiyue's gentle eyes. The wound on Mu Qingwu's body was very important. It was treated by Han Yunqing. If they could prove that the wound wasn't related to the current illness, then Han Yunqing would be innocent. If this wound caused any trouble, or if it was fatal, then Han Yunqing would have to sit in jail for a long time. Luckily, Han Kangin was Han Yunqing's biological father. He actually grasped onto Han Yunqing's fatal weakness and refused to let go. Since Uncle Han has said so, then we'll have to wait to see if Qin Wenfei is guilty. Gu Beiyue's tone was still very gentle, but his words hit the nail on the head and exposed Han Kangen's true colors. Gu Beiyue examined Mu Qingwu's wound and checked his pulse. After confirming that Han Kangen hadn't done anything, he said seriously, "General Mu, it seems that not only can divine physician Han not cure the crown prince, he also can't cure the young general. Fortunately, I still have confidence in the young general's condition. In these 2 days, the young general will wake up. I will keep watch." General Mu, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly raised his fist and roared, "Get out! All of you, get out! You're all trash." This general's irritable temper was well known in the imperial court. There was once a civil official who was crippled by him. Han Kangen was afraid of death and hurriedly escaped. However, Gu Beiyue stood up and faced the furious General Mu. He handed over a lawsuit written in black and white. It was actually a life and death lawsuit. "General Mu, I guarantee with my life that the young general will wake up in these 2 days. I can save him. Otherwise, a life for a life." Gu Beiyue was dressed in white and looked weak, but his words were sonorous and fearless. The furious General Mu's fist froze in midair. After a long time, it finally fell down. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, this general will give you one more chance." At this time, Han Kangen had already escaped far away. He pondered over the meaning of Gu Beiyue's words. Did he suspect something? With Gu Beiyue here, it would be difficult to make a move on Mu Qingwu. If Mu Qingwu really woke up, then everything would be over. Han Kangen pondered as he walked out of the courtyard. At this time, Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue walked over. Princess Changping was fine this morning. Why was she wearing a veil now? "Your Highness, you..." Han Kangen asked suspiciously. "Nothing. Why did you come out? How's brother Qinggu?" Princess Changping asked anxiously. She didn't know what kind of dirty things she'd gotten when she went to the prison last night. Her feet and face had been itchy since morning, and she'd just grown red spots that looked a bit like a rash. Her face was the most precious thing to her. She secretly went to the imperial physician to apply some medicine. The physician said it was a rash and would heal in a day or 2. Only then did she relax and rush over after applying the medicine. Chapter 30. Aya. Han Kangen shook his head. The young general's illness really is complicated. We can only wait a few days and see how things go. At these words, Princess Changping grew angry. Han Kangen, what's wrong with you? How can you be so useless? Big brother Crown Prince, you can't cure him. Big brother Wuqing, you can't cure him either. What kind of divine doctor are you? You quack, I'm going to tell my imperial grandmother. This stupid princess wholeheartedly wanted to save Mu Qinggu and harm Han Yunqing, but she didn't know she was being used as a chess piece by the Empress Dowager. Han Kangen suppressed his anger and patiently coaxed, "Princess Changping, calm your anger." Even imperial physician Gu couldn't tell. Who knows how long he'll wait. If this drags on for too long, what if? Han Kangen's words directly pointed the spearhead at Gu Beiyue. Before he could finish, Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue grew afraid. Mu Luiyue was much smarter than Princess Changping and immediately understood. "Princess, that day imperial physician Gu and Han Yunqing worked together to save him. If Han Yunqing is guilty, then so is imperial physician Gu. Why did father let him monopolize Big Brother?" "That's right. Imperial physician Gu is an accomplice too." Princess Changping suddenly realized. In her excitement, she almost hurt her waist. After all, her injuries hadn't fully healed yet. She rubbed her waist and said, "I'll go report him to the justice courts right now." Han Kongan nodded. "Your Royal Highness, then this one will go back and find a few medical academy directors to discuss. Shall we come back tomorrow?" The medical academy's people weren't ordinary people. Cloud Realm Continent's medical academy was a place that all doctors yearned for. It gathered the continent's medical elites, especially those directors who were over 100 years old. They were the absolute authority of Cloud Realm Continent's medical community. Princess Changping and Mu Luiyue were both delighted. "Good, good, good. Then we'll wait for your good news. Big brother will definitely be saved. When the time comes, I'll have father chase Imperial Physician Gu away." "That's great. Luiyue, let's go to the Supreme Court to do something big." Princess Changping was in a very good mood. She was certain that her Qinggu Gij would be fine. Mu Luiyue hurriedly followed behind like a shadow. The two of them didn't think about it. Although the medical academy's directors were powerful, they weren't immortals. They had treated the Crown Prince's illness a few times, and he still hadn't recovered. Looking at their departing figures, Han Kongan's lips curled into a cold smile. There were many incurable illnesses in the world. He had already suffered from the Crown Prince's illness, so he wouldn't lead the way again. As long as they replaced Gu Beiyue and found an imperial physician, wouldn't it be easy to make Mu Qinggu unconscious and kill Mu Qinggu? This way, he wouldn't have to get involved in this mess himself. Han Yunqing, Han Yunqing. You caused your mother's death and embarrassed the Han family in front of the Empress Dowager and the Duke of Qin's estate. This time, you should do something for the Han family. Far away in prison, Han Yunqing didn't know how dangerous her situation was. Because Gu Beiyue regularly sent people to visit her, the North Court official was frightened last night and didn't dare to torture her again. However, she didn't expect that in the afternoon, an unexpected person would come. At this time, Han Yunqing was curled up on the Kong bed, counting the time with her fingers. Tonight or tomorrow, the poison in Mu Qingwu's body would definitely show. As long as Gu Beiyue could collect a blood sample in time, even if she didn't have the medicine on hand, she could write a prescription to temporarily save Mu Qingwu's life. She waited and waited. When would Gu Beiyue come? At this time, a jailer walked over. She didn't know what he said to the jailers guarding the door, but the jailers all left. Han Yunqing raised her eyebrows and looked at him, but didn't pay him any attention. Who knew that the jailer would actually open the door and walk in? No matter what, Han Yunqing was still a wanted criminal. How could a small jailer come in? She saw that the jailer was around 50 years old and had a kind face. He looked around in a panic and after confirming that no one was coming, he hurriedly walked over to Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing looked at him cautiously, but didn't say anything. Unexpectedly, when the jailer came closer, he actually knelt down with a putong sound, "Little benefactor. Little benefactor. This old man has finally seen you. This old man thought that he would never see you again in this lifetime." Han Yunqing completely remembered the original owner's memories. The original owner was a useless and ugly girl who didn't leave the house and was bullied every day. She didn't do anything bad, nor did she do anything good. "Old man, if there's anything, please get up and tell me." Han Yunqing got off the bed to support him. The jailer was so excited that he refused to get up. "Little benefactor, you definitely don't know who I am, but I know who you are. You're Lady Tianqin's daughter, right? You married Qin Wang and are now Qin Wang Fei." Lady Tianqin, even though Han Yunqing only inherited the original owner's body and memories and wasn't the original owner herself, but this name still gave her a warm feeling in her heart that couldn't be ignored. Lady Tianqin was her mother, a woman with superb medical skills and the heart of a true doctor. In order to give birth to her, she died in childbirth. "Little benefactor, your mother is the benefactor of our entire family." At the end of December that year, a plague ran rampant in Luohe village in the western suburbs and my entire family was infected. It was your mother who cured our entire family. Otherwise we would have been burned alive. As the jailer spoke, he knelt down again and choked with sobs. Why do good people have short lives? This old man didn't even have time to repay her kindness before Lady Tianxin passed away. The jailer seemed to be truly heartbroken as tears streamed down his old face. Old man, it's my mother's duty as a doctor to help the world. You don't have to take it to heart. Living well is the best way to repay my mother. Han Yunqing tried to persuade the jailer and helped him up, but who knew that the jailer wouldn't get up? Little benefactor, this old man is here today to repay your kindness. Little benefactor, this old man can't watch you die in prison without doing anything. The moment he said this, Han Yunqing was shocked. Die here? The jailer glanced back nervously. After confirming that no one was coming, he held Han Yunqing's hand tightly and said in a low voice, Little benefactor, I wanted to come and see you when you came in, but it was only my turn to be on duty last night. I secretly heard the North Court official and the others talking. The higher-ups want your life. I know. Han Yunqing discreetly broke free from the jailer's hand and smiled faintly. There were many higher-ups who wanted her life. However, the jailer was very nervous. Little benefactor, it's the Empress Dowager who wants your life. They want to kill young General Mu and sentence you to death. Seeing that Han Yunqing didn't have much of a reaction, the jailer hurriedly said, Little benefactor, you don't know that young General Mu is the second prince's man. The Empress Dowager wants to take the opportunity to get rid of young General Mu for His Highness the Crown Prince. Hearing this, Han Yunqing was shocked. However, she wasn't shocked by the Empress Dowager's intentions, but by this jailer. This little jailer knew so much. The jailer was very nervous. He deliberately ran to the door to see if there was anyone. After confirming that there was no one, he ran back and said timidly, Little benefactor, I'm also on duty tonight. I've already bribed the people below. I know a secret passage. When the time comes, you just need to follow me. Don't foolishly wait here. I've already heard them say that as soon as young General Mu dies tomorrow, they'll immediately kill you and say that you committed suicide to escape punishment. You are letting me go? Han Yunqing asked in disbelief. That's right, we'll sneak away in the middle of the night. Little benefactor, I've already prepared a carriage to pick you up. Run as far as you can, and don't ever come back. The jailer said earnestly. If I run, wouldn't it be considered fleeing punishment? How can I explain myself clearly in this lifetime? Han Yunqing asked again. Sorry, she was an orphan since childhood. She was accustomed to the fickleness of human nature and the fickleness of the world. It was impossible for her to easily believe a stranger. Besides, if she really ran away, it would be equivalent to admitting that she had misdiagnosed. This was the greatest humiliation for a doctor. Taking a step back, she also didn't believe that the Empress Dowager could easily kill Mu Qingguo. This jailer, did he still think that she was that inexperienced Han Yunqing who hadn't seen the world? Little benefactor, we can't care about whether or not you've committed a crime now. Saving your life is more important. The jailer was very anxious. If I leave, then what will happen to you? I can't do things that harm people. Han Yunqing deliberately emphasized the word harm. The jailer's gaze was somewhat evasive as he said earnestly, Little benefactor, this old man's lowly life is worthless. Madame Tianxin saved the lives of this old man's entire family. It's not too much for this old man to repay her with this lowly life of mine. The jailer's eyes were brimming with hot tears and he was extremely emotional. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqing suddenly asked, Why should I believe you? At this moment, the jailer was stunned. Little benefactor, the jailer stammered guiltily and couldn't explain himself for a long time. Han Yunqing's lips curled into a cold smile. She already had an idea in her heart. Elder, you're already so old. You can't afford to be tormented. Let's go. As Han Yunqing spoke, she nestled on the Kong bed. Her pair of bright eyes were as clear as fire, making the jailer not dare to look directly at her. Then, little benefactor, you take care. The jailer barely managed to steady himself and hurriedly retreated. Han Yunqing silently watched, thinking that if she really did escape tonight, she'd probably be killed as soon as she left the Supreme Court. Who exactly was it that came up with such a treacherous plan? As soon as the jailer left, he was brought to a secret room by two jailers. Inside, Princess Changping, Mu Luiyue, and He Zhe of the Northern Court were chatting. Seeing the jailer return, Princess Changping hurriedly stood up. How was it? Did she agree? At the same time that Princess Changping came to sue Gu Beiyue, she also came up with a brilliant plan for He Zhe of the Northern Court to trick Han Yunqing into breaking out of prison. Last night, she hadn't been able to deal with Han Yunqing. Instead, she'd sprained her own waist and even caught a rash. Princess Changping wanted nothing more than to see Han Yunqing convicted right now. The jailer hurriedly knelt down. Princess Changping, Qin Wangfei is too clever. This one is useless. Princess Changping's hopes were dashed. She angrily kicked him. Useless thing, why aren't you scramming? The Northern Court official gave the jailers a look and they took the jailer away. Princess Changping narrowed her eyes, her gaze becoming frightening. She made a kill gesture towards the Northern Court official. You can't. The Northern Court official immediately refused. Your Highness, you absolutely can't. If it was possible, last night we would've, no matter what, she can't die here. The Supreme Court can't bear this responsibility. Moreover, the Empress Dowager hasn't said anything yet. With me here, what are you afraid of? Imperial Grandmother has long wished for her death. Princess Changping pursed her lips and said coldly. Even so, she can't die here. There's still Qin. The Northern Court official hadn't finished speaking when Mu Luiyue suddenly had an idea. Princess, Northern Court official, I have another plan. What do you think? Chapter 31. It was unknown what Mu Luiyue said in a low voice, but Princess Changping and the North Court official both revealed happy expressions. The North Court official immediately gave her a thumbs up. Wonderful. Eldest Miss Mu is truly an intelligent person. Good. Luiyue, after this matter is completed, you will be heavily rewarded. Princess Changping's eyes were filled with sinister laughter as she immediately ordered the North Court official to make preparations. Han Yunqing, this time I will definitely kill you. Han Yunqing anxiously waited for an entire afternoon, but there was still no news from Mu Qingguo. At this time, the sky was already dark. Another day had passed, and tomorrow was the deadline. She almost suspected that Gu Beiyue had already collected the blood sample and was on his way here. However, it wasn't until dinner time that a little medicine boy came over with a specially made medicinal soup to ward off the cold. Han Yunqing drank it and knew that it was made by Gu Beiyue. Her heart warmed. This fellow Gu Beiyue was truly a thoughtful person. Is there a situation with the young general? Han Yunqing asked in a low voice. The little medicine boy shook his head. Qin Wangfei, your father came over today. After he left, Imperial Physician Gu has been guarding the young general the entire time, not leaving even half a step. Han Konggan. Did he say anything? Han Yunqing didn't treat him as a person. She was a bit nervous. Everyone in the capital knew that Han Konggan was the Empress Dowager's dog. This little one isn't clear. Esteemed Wangfei, quickly drink it while it's hot. The little medicine boy couldn't stay for too long. As Han Yunqing drank the soup, he said in a low voice, Divine Physician Han didn't make a diagnosis, so General Mu lost his temper. Imperial Physician Gu signed a life and death agreement before General Mu allowed him to stay. Hearing this, Han Yunqing's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know why, but her eyes began to sting. Princess Consort, Imperial Physician Gu asked this little one to tell you that he wants you to relax and not worry too much. He wants you to take care of yourself and wait for him to come. In Han Yunqing's mind, Gu Beiyue's gentle and watery eyes unconsciously appeared. Her anxious and fretful heart inexplicably calmed down. Gu Beiyue, will you come tonight? How could Han Yunqing fall asleep that night? It was already the middle of the night, but her eyes were still wide open. She firmly believed that her judgment wasn't wrong. Tonight or tomorrow, in one night or one day, her and Mu Qingwu's fate would be judged. Gu Beiyue was their only hope. They could only hope that nothing would happen to Gu Beiyue. Han Yunqing waited and waited. Finally, when the sky was hazy and bright, there was movement outside the cell. She could hear that the footsteps were very urgent. In the dim light, Han Yunqing was not sure who it was. Although she was very excited, she suppressed it and silently waited. Very soon, the light shined in and she saw that it really was Gu Beiyue. Han Yunqing was filled with joy and immediately jumped down from the stove. Seeing that there were jailers here, she did not dare make a sound. Gu Beiyue had secretly bribed the jailers to have them leave. This was not the time to visit the prisoners, so Gu Beiyue must have spent quite a bit of money. When the jailers left, Gu Beiyue was even more anxious than Han Yunqing. Quickly, the thing you wanted is here. The poison has erupted. Han Yunqing said in a low voice. Yes, you're right. He has a high fever and his lips and tongue are purple. I took a blood sample and immediately came over. General Mu finally believes us and is personally guarding him. Gu Beiyue handed the gold needle to Han Yunqing. Although he did not know much about poisons, from Mu Qingwu's pulse and complexion, the poison must be highly toxic. Everyone knew that when facing highly toxic poisons, it was a race against time. He had to immediately take the antidote and go back to save him. Otherwise, the hard work of the past few days would be wasted. Han Yunqing did not ask any more questions. She turned around and put the gold needle into the detoxification system for examination. The results scared her so much that she almost fell. It's 10,000 snake poison. 10,000 snake poison. Gu Beiyue had never heard of it. It's a mixture of the 10 most poisonous snake venoms in the world. The toxicity of this poison is very deep, but once it erupts, it will definitely kill within 2 hours. As Han Yunqing spoke, she did not bother to explain too much. She immediately took out a few packets of medicine from the detoxification system. Here, this medicine can only temporarily slow down the speed of the poison erupting. Let him take the medicine first, then go and prepare the antidote. You must prepare the antidote within 4 hours and let him take it, otherwise. Han Yunqing did not bother to say, otherwise. She hurriedly told Gu Beiyue the prescription of the antidote and let him go. In fact, if she could get out, she could directly use acupuncture to detoxify the poison. However, she could not get out, so she could only use medicine to neutralize the poison. Fortunately, it was not difficult for Gu Beiyue to find the medicine. One had to know that it would take some time to return from the Supreme Court to the general. It would also take time to brew the medicine. It was really a race against time. If they won, everything would be fine. If they lost, they would lose 2 lives. Gu Beiyue was already anxious. When he heard Han Yunqing's words, he took the medicine and wanted to leave without saying goodbye. But unexpectedly, Gu Beiyue had only taken a few steps when the North Court official personally led a few jailers to surround him. Imperial Physician Gu, so you were here in the middle of the night. No wonder this official couldn't find you in the estate. Gu Beiyue was burning with anxiety, but he remained calm on the surface. May I know why the North Court official is looking for this one? Unexpectedly, the North Court official waved his hand, and a few jailers stepped forward to capture Gu Beiyue. North Court official Hizei, what is the meaning of this? Gu Beiyue questioned coldly. This official suspects that you and Han Yunqing colluded in the misdiagnosis of Mu Qingwu's murder. Right now, you are being detained to await trial, the North Court official said loudly. At this moment, Han Yunqing also heard this from the prison. She was so angry that she kicked the wall. These people couldn't be doing this on purpose, right? North Court official, who gave you this authority? You dare to lock up the emperor's personal imperial physician? Gu Beiyue was calm, but his eyes were cold. He raised his hands and bowed to the sky. Empress Dowager. Where's the evidence? North Court official He, General Mu already believes me. I am going back to treat the young general's poison now. If you dare to lock me up, you will have to bear the consequences. Finally, the usually gentle Gu Beiyue was angry. One had to know that Mu Qinggu and Han Yunqing's lives were in his hands. Nonsense. Divine Physician Han has already asked the Medical Academy's Board of Directors for a diagnosis. You should give up. The North Court official snorted. Let me go. You will cause the young general's death. I want to see the emperor. North Court official He, the emperor's health has not been good recently. I must be on standby at any time. Think carefully. Gu Beiyue kept struggling. Unfortunately, he was only a physician and didn't have the strength to truss up a chicken. How could he resist the burly jailers? Soon, his voice disappeared in the gloomy corridor. Princess Changping had long since urged the North Court official to arrest him. She said that if Imperial Father wanted to punish him, she would bear the consequences alone. The North Court official was also apprehensive of Gu Beiyue's identity, so he didn't dare to make a move. He had just found out that the emperor's health had been good these past few days and had also approved Gu Beiyue's request for leave. Thus, he silently arrested him in the middle of the night. Someone come, report to the princess that the matter has been taken care of without alerting anyone. The North Court official yawned as he spoke, a sharp light flashing through his eyes. He waved his hand, indicating for everyone to withdraw. Soon, everyone had left and the flames had also retreated. Han Yunqing finally couldn't take it anymore and fiercely kicked the iron bars. She couldn't use words to express her anger and anxiety. She continuously took deep breaths and paced back and forth. There were only 2 hours left. What should she do in 2 hours? When General Mu saw that Gu Beiyue hadn't returned, would he discover something strange? Would he come to look for him? When would he come? Would it be too late to wait for General Mu to send someone to bring the medicine back? Without Gu Beiyue, would the ingredients in the prescription be found in such a short time? What if General Mu thought that Gu Beiyue had tricked him? What would she do then? Calmness was the most basic quality of a physician. Even in the face of death, a physician would remain calm. However, at this very moment, Han Yunqing was extremely irritable. She couldn't afford to wait, nor could she afford to gamble. Time slowly passed. Han Yunqing gripped the iron bars with both hands, her heart beating faster and faster. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe her as a trapped beast. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly flashed and landed in front of her. Han Yunqing was stunned at first. Seeing the black-clothed masked man holding a broadsword, she hurriedly retreated. Who are you? Han Yunqing, someone paid to get you out. Stop talking nonsense and come with me. The black-clothed man said. With a slash of his broadsword, he cut the lock and rushed in. Assassin? Prison break? Her enemies wished that she would never leave the prison. How could they spend money to break her out? Recalling the scene in the prison this morning, Han Yunqing more or less guessed something strange. Presumably, after she was rescued, the next day she would be accused of absconding. Just as she was about to hide, the black-clothed man had already grabbed her shoulder. Han Yunqing wanted to struggle and shout, but suddenly she stopped moving. Opportunity. The opportunity to leave the prison to save people has come, hasn't it? Hero, don't kill me. I beg you, don't kill me. I'm willing to go with you. Han Yunqing pretended to be afraid. As long as you obediently follow me, I promise I won't kill you. The black-clothed assassin was eager for Han Yunqing to be obedient. Han Yunqing nodded again and again. Thus, the black-clothed assassin took her out of the prison cell and went to the main gate. Along the way, Han Yunqing saw many prison guards lying on the ground. There were also several prison guards. It seemed that the black-clothed assassin really killed his way here. When they went out of the main gate, they met several prison guards. The black-clothed assassin's martial arts was strong and incomparably brave. He stabbed them one by one and brought Han Yunqing out of the main gate. A doctor's eyes were the sharpest of all, able to discern even the smallest details. Han Yunqing had her suspicions before, but now she was certain that the black-robed assassin was one of the North Court officials' men. He'd purposely lured her out to frame her with the crime of absconding. The black-clothed assassin did not stop after they went out of the main gate. He took Han Yunqing and ran a distance away from the main gate. They stopped in a small alley. "Where are you taking me?" Han Yunqing timidly asked. The black-clothed assassin sneered, "Qin Wangfei, the person who hired me wants to kill you. However, you must die outside the prison." "Hee, I'm sorry." As he spoke, he suddenly raised his large knife and chopped towards Han Yunqing's neck. Han Yunqing hastily dodged. The black-clothed assassin disdainfully laughed, "The sky is about to brighten. Qin Wangfei, this little one will send you on your way." However, just as he raised his large knife, who knew that his hand would suddenly cramp? In an instant, he lost all his strength and the large knife fell to the ground with a clang. At the same time, his other hand and the bones in both his legs suddenly spasmed. Following that, he lost all his strength and his entire body collapsed on the ground. You! The black-clothed assassin powerlessly laid on the ground. He was so shocked that he could not speak. Chapter 32. Han Yunqing's timid expression vanished without a trace to be replaced by indescribable fury. She viciously stomped on the assassin's face. "You what? I'll send you to your death. Go back and tell Hizhe of the North Court that this Wang Fei will remember this debt." She was a doctor, and a doctor of poisons at that. To put it nicely, she was a poisons master. She knew how to treat poisons, but she was even better at poisoning. The black-robed assassin had pulled her hand all the way here from the prison cell, completely unguarded. If she didn't seize the chance to poison him, she'd be letting down her professional ethics. Han Yunqing knew that as soon as she left the Justice Court's prisons, she'd be accused of absconding regardless of whether she died or not. But time was of the essence, so she threw caution to the wind. Since those people wanted her to escape, then she might as well make the accusation a reality. After tossing and turning for over an hour, she had less than an hour left. After leaving the alley, Han Yunqing ran for her life towards General Mu's estate, her thin figure running through the early morning mist like a little deer. "Master, that looks like a steamed Wang Fei," Chu Shifeng said timidly. He and the Duke of Qin had just returned to the city after searching for medicine when they ran into Qin Wangfei. Fortunately, they dodged in time, or else they really would have been sent flying. Right now, master and servant were hiding on a rooftop by the road. Long Fei Yi was dressed in white brocade robes, looking extraordinarily handsome and noble. He furrowed his brows and chased after the woman without a word. Why was this woman running so fast so early in the morning? Was she running for her life? Han Yunqing ran and ran with all her might. She was running to save a life, but she ran even faster than running for her life. Why was the damned justice court so far away from the general's estate? Han Yunqing had no idea how fast she ran. By the time she reached the general's gates, she was out of breath. She pulled on the door knocker and pounded on it until she couldn't speak. Very soon, the guard opened the door and was given a fright when he saw her. "Qin Wangfei, why is it you? Where's Imperial Physician Gu? Quick!" Han Yunqing was still gasping for breath. She couldn't speak, so she simply stopped talking. She pushed open the door guard and was about to rush inside. Unexpectedly, a loud shout came from behind. "Han Yunqing, why are you here? Stop right there. Who else could this voice be other than Princess Changping? Han Yunqing's footsteps paused. She didn't turn around and immediately ran inside. Princess Changping panicked. Men, chase after her. Han Yunqing escaped from prison. Several attendants hurriedly chased after him. Princess Changping also lifted her long skirt and ran over. She had just received news from Hizhe of the northern court that Gu Beiyue had been imprisoned. She immediately went to find Divine Dr. Han. Divine Dr. Han said that he still needed to wait for news from the Medical Academy's board of directors and recommended an imperial physician. Han Yunqing once again ran with all her might, madly running towards Mu Qingwu's bedroom. Several attendants and Princess Changping chased after her with all their might. Very soon, the quiet general's estate was in chaos. Han Yunqing firmly believed that this was the fastest she'd ever run in her life. When she reached Mu Qingwu's door, she almost ran into it. Fortunately, she pressed her hand against the door and stopped. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. She frantically knocked on the door while gasping for breath. General Mu, who was personally guarding the door, hurriedly opened it. When he saw Han Yunqing, he jumped in fright. You! Han Yunqing, why is it you? Where's Gu Beiyue? Didn't he go? Gu Beiyue hadn't returned. He'd already sent people to look for him, but those people hadn't returned. He was anxious but didn't dare to leave Mu Qingwu's side. Now that he saw Han Yunqing, he was truly a bit stunned. Han Yunqing was truly out of breath. She gestured inside, indicating that General Mu should let her in. At this time, Princess Changping's voice came from behind. Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing, stop right there, don't let her in. General Mu, she's a fugitive. Stop her. What was going on? No matter what happened, curing the poison was the most important thing. General Mu saw Gu Beiyue take out a black sample of poisoned blood from Mu Qingwu's wound. He also saw Mu Qingwu's lips turn black. Even if he didn't know anything about medicine or poison, he knew that the poison had flared up. Even if he didn't believe Han Yunqing, he had no choice but to believe it. Han Yunqing said he was poisoned, so he really was poisoned. Han Yunqing said that the poison would show itself in these few days, so it really came true. Wasn't the poison needle in Qingwu's body also taken out by Han Yunqing? The more General Mu thought about it, the more he felt that something wasn't right. Han Yunqing had diagnosed it, but Han Kangin hadn't seen it. He'd even said that he wanted to invite the Medical Academy's board of directors to treat him, but they still hadn't come. Curing the poison, how urgent was that? General Mu would acknowledge whoever could cure the poison as his ancestor. Thinking of this, General Mu recalled Gu Beiyue's reminder before he left. The Empress Dowager had personally issued an arrest warrant to lock up Han Yunqing. No matter what, the Empress Dowager would have people come up with evidence. And the evidence was Mu Qingwu. General Mu wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that the Crown Prince's faction had been coveting Qingwu's military power for a long time. Seeing Princess Changping's people chasing after him, General Mu made a prompt decision. He pushed Han Yunqing into the room and went out himself. He closed the door behind him and even locked it. As soon as the door was locked, Princess Changping's attendants arrived. Seeing General Mu standing at the door like a demon, the attendants, who were used to relying on others' power, became timid. They pushed each other, not daring to come forward. Princess Changping was so angry that she couldn't run anymore. She panted as she walked over. It took her a long time to catch her breath. She ordered, General Mu, immediately open the door for this princess. Princess Changping, this is my son's bedroom. What are you trying to do so early in the morning? General Mu asked unhappily. Princess Changping was stunned. What was wrong with General Mu? Didn't he also hate Han Yunqing? It was Han Yunqing who had caused Qingwu Gij to be like this. General Mu, are you crazy? You let Han Yunqing, that murderer, in. What are you trying to do? Princess Changping was furious. Imperial physician Gu is treating him. Don't make trouble. General Mu wasn't polite at all. Princess Changping was dumbfounded. She immediately shouted, General Mu, you're possessed. You're still pretending. I saw you let Han Yunqing in. This princess is telling you, Han Yunqing is a fugitive. Are you harboring a criminal? Princess, you're mistaken. Qin Wangfei is locked up in the imperial prison. How could she be in my Mu estate? General Mu lied confidently. For his son, he was willing to lie with his eyes open. As long as his son could wake up, everything would be easy. You. Princess Changping was furious. I clearly saw it. You're lying. That's right. General Mu, you're a first-rank official. You can't lie with your eyes open. The attendant hurriedly echoed. General Mu glared at him. You also know that this general is a first-rank official. What qualifications do you have to speak to this general? Why aren't you retreating? The attendant's face was ashen. He could only resentfully retreat behind Princess Changping. Princess Changping pouted. I don't care. I saw it. I want to go in. As she spoke, she really wanted to force her way in. General Mu simply leaned against the door and opened his arms. Qin Gu is seriously ill and needs to rest. Old man, let's see who dares to force their way in today. Without the Emperor's orders, even if this old man dies here, I won't open the door. Inside the room, Han Yunqing was in the midst of doing another scan to determine the depth and location of the poison. Hearing General Mu's words, she let out a sigh of relief. At least this old thing wasn't muddle-headed. She only had 30 minutes left. There wasn't enough time to brew the medicine and then find a way to concoct the antidote. Since she was here, she naturally had to use acupuncture to expel the poison. The detoxification system's scanner was currently scanning back and forth. The poison's location would soon be determined. At the door, Princess Changping was currently tugging on General Mu's hand. She pulled with all her strength, but no matter what, she couldn't move it. General Mu, you'll kill Qinggu Gij. No matter what, you can't let Han Yunqing stay inside by herself. I brought an imperial physician. You should at least let him in to take a look. Han Yunqing already treated him twice. Both times, there was no effect. She said he would wake up, but he still hasn't woken up. She really can't be trusted. General Mu, I'm begging you, let the imperial physician in. Imperial physician? Sent by the Empress Dowager, right? General Mu sneered inwardly. His body was like a mountain, unmoving. Princess Changping couldn't move him, nor could she persuade him. Just as she was feeling anxious, Mu Luiyue suddenly led a group of people over. This group was none other than the North Court official, He Zhe, and his men. She'd come up with a brilliant plan for the North Court official. She'd arranged for an assassin to break out of prison and kill Han Yunqing. Then, she'd lead the troops in pursuit. After seeing Han Yunqing's corpse, she'd frame her with the crime of fleeing and dying. But who knew that a weak woman like Han Yunqing would actually be able to escape from the assassin's blade? If it wasn't for Mu Liuyue's report, the North Court official really wouldn't know where to find her. Seeing the North Court official bring a group of soldiers over, Princess Changping was overjoyed. She hurriedly said, North Court official, Han Yunqing is in the room. Hurry up and capture her. When General Mu saw the North Court official, he knew things weren't good. He wanted nothing more than to hang Mu Luiyue up and give her a good beating. In times of chaos, it was the world of soldiers. In times of peace, it was the world of officials. Soldiers couldn't fight with officials, otherwise they'd be accused of plotting a rebellion. Inside the room, Han Yunqing had already found the exact location of the 10,000 snake poison. The poison would gather at Mu Qingwu's chest, erupting bit by bit from the depths. This location was very close to the heart, so she had to use the needles immediately. She couldn't afford to waste any time. Han Yunqing rejoiced that she'd come early. She tried her best to ignore the sounds outside the door. Calming herself down, she focused her mind and took out the needles she needed, placing them one by one to the side. She then began to undo Mu Qingwu's clothes, searching for the exact acupoints. General Mu, this one's duty is to pursue a fugitive. I hope you can make things easy for me. The North Court official was still very polite. The fugitive isn't here. North Court official, please. General Mu didn't give him any face, blocking the door and not moving. Princess Changping clearly saw the fugitive enter. Could it be that General Mu thinks she's lying? The North Court official asked again. General Mu didn't reply, turning his head to look elsewhere. General Mu, since you don't want to cooperate, then don't blame this official for being rude. The North Court official first tried peaceful means before resorting to force. His voice was cold as he ordered, "Men, please move General Mu aside and search the room." In an instant, the soldiers surrounded General Mu, wanting to capture him. The North Court official was different from Princess Changping. He had the authority to capture fugitives and had a legitimate reason to use the soldiers. You dare! General Mu roared, scaring everyone into not daring to move. He was a great general with hundreds of thousands of soldiers under his command. We're following the Empress Dowager's orders to capture a fugitive. What are you all standing around for? The North Court official was also angry. Chapter 33. Inside the room, Han Yunqing was in the middle of inserting the first gold needle. She was very unwilling, but she still heard the commotion outside. At this juncture, if those people barged in, things would become even more troublesome. They would definitely accuse her of a second murder. However, her acupuncture technique couldn't be rushed and had to be done one by one. General Mu, you must hold on. She didn't even notice the cold sweat on her temples. Han Yunqing gritted her teeth and once again concentrated on inserting the second gold needle. With He of the North Court's words, the soldiers all stepped forward. General Mu's brows were tightly knitted and he couldn't bear it any longer. He impulsively pulled out his long sword. Guards, protect young general. Just as he finished speaking, a group of soldiers rushed out from the side of the room, all of them holding long spears. Seeing this, He of the North Court took in a cold breath and angrily questioned, General Mu, what do you mean by this? Are you going to mobilize the soldiers? This time, the surrounding people were all dumbstruck. They didn't expect General Mu to do this. Although there was a saying, when a general is away, the emperor's orders are not obeyed, General Mu was currently in the capital. Without the emperor's orders, he couldn't mobilize the soldiers. Furthermore, the soldiers under his command could only be stationed outside the capital. He only left a small group of soldiers in the residence to act as guards. How could soldiers go against the soldiers? Moreover, He of the North Court was under orders to arrest people. Was General Mu going to defy the Empress Dowager's imperial edict and openly rebel? General Mu was very clear about the consequences of his actions. But for his son's life, he was going to risk everything. General Mu, I'm under orders to arrest people. You dare to mobilize the soldiers against me? Are you really going to rebel? He of the North Court said sternly. Father. Suddenly, Mu Luiyue cried out, Father, calm down, calm down. At the side, the housekeeper and attendants were also flustered. They didn't expect things to develop to this stage. Even if it was for young General Mu couldn't mobilize the soldiers and give people a reason to criticize him. If this matter were to reach the emperor, the crime of rebellion, especially when the soldiers rebelled, was punishable by the execution of 9 generations of the family. How many people in the imperial court were waiting to find fault with the general's residence? After being yelled at by his family, General Mu finally calmed down. He glared fiercely at He of the North Court, but his heart was filled with sorrow. This was the sorrow of being an official. This was his Achilles heel. No matter how much the emperor valued him, as long as he raised his troops for no reason, or if he went against the government for no reason, then only death awaited him. There was no room for negotiation. In times of peace and prosperity, generals were actually the most useless people in the imperial capital. General Mu resentfully put down his sword, and the surrounding soldiers could only retreat. Seeing this, Hizei of the North Court was overjoyed. With a look, a few burly soldiers captured General Mu. It was not that General Mu could not resist, but that he could not resist as a general. General Mu was escorted to the side. Hizei of the Northern Court was pleased with his success. General Mu, don't worry. If we find Han Yunqing, this official won't dare to accuse you of harboring an escaped concubine. This official will say that you have done a meritorious deed by reporting her. Ha! General Mu was so angry that his teeth were about to shatter. He looked at Hizei of the North Court and mournfully shouted to Princess Changping, Princess Changping, Qinggu really was poisoned. Han Yunqing's diagnosis wasn't wrong. The detoxification is urgent. She's saving Qingwu's life right now. Princess Changping didn't believe a useless piece of trash like Han Yunqing. You've been possessed. What nonsense are you saying? As she spoke, she hurriedly shouted, Imperial physician, someone come, find an imperial physician. Where's the imperial physician? A trace of coldness flashed through Hizei of the North Court's eyes. The Empress Dowager had already issued a secret order to take Mu Qingwu's life. Han Yunqing had come at the right time. She was the best candidate for the murderer. Someone come, break that lock. Hizei of the North Court suddenly shouted. Boom! A loud sound rang out, causing Han Yunqing to jump in fright. The hand holding the needles trembled for the first time. There were still a few gold needles in her hand, but her hand was trembling as much as her heart. The rustling sounds outside the door indicated that those people were removing the lock. In the next moment, they would push the door open and enter. At this moment, Han Yunqing's delicate and pretty little face had drooping eyes and her tender lips were tightly pursed. She was cold and inviolable. One of her hands continued to insert needles, while the other pulled out Mu Qingwu's dagger and held it in her hand. As long as she had 10 more minutes, she would be able to force the poison out. She was going to risk it all. No matter who tried to stop her, she would take Mu Qingwu hostage. Let's see who would dare to move. Time slowly passed. However, very quickly, Han Yunqing discovered that after the rustling sounds outside the door, there was no more sound. It was completely silent, and even after a long time, no one pushed the door open to enter. What was going on? Not only was it quiet outside the door, there was also no movement at all. Did something happen? Han Yunqing couldn't figure it out, so she decided not to think about it. Nothing was better than having something happen. She had to seize the time to expel the poison from the body. Without any distractions, her concentration was much more focused than before. Her speed was also much faster. One by one, the gold needles were inserted into the corresponding acupoints in an orderly manner. In a short while, Mu Qingwu's chest was filled with over 20 gold needles. His originally white skin gradually turned red, and the color of his eyes deepened. In the end, it was so red that it turned black. Seeing this, Han Yunqing was overjoyed. The poison was about to be forced out. She took out another gold needle, but who knew that at this moment, a wave of loud cheers could be heard from outside the door. Long live His Highness Duke of Qin. Han Yunqing's hand froze. Her self-control had always been very good. Unless it was an extremely special situation, it wasn't easy to disturb her. However, this loud cheer made her subconsciously turn her head. The Duke of Qin. Her new husband, Long Feiyi. Heavens, was he here? Was that why everyone was so quiet just now? Why did he come? What did he come for? Did he find the medicinal ingredients so quickly and come to find her? Alright, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that this great deity had come. She was safe, absolutely safe. Han Yunqing really wanted to say, Long Fei Yi, you're this lady's destined savior. With Long Fei Ye's arrival, Han Yunqing was certain that she was safe. No matter what was said outside, no matter what movement there was, she blocked it all out and focused on expelling the poison from Mu Qingwu's body. At this time, everyone outside the door was kneeling. Even Princess Changping was bowing, not daring to get up. Mu Luyue, who had long admired the Duke of Qin, was kneeling at the very back. She seemed to be in a daze as she stared fixedly at Long Fei Yi. It was as if she and Long Fei Yi were the only things left in the world. Everyone and anything else had been thrown to the back of her mind. Many of the soldiers and guards present had never seen Long Fei Yi in person. They all trembled with fear as they lowered their heads. They were both excited and afraid, wanting to look but not daring to. This was a man who existed like a god. Long Fei Yi casually stood in front of the door. His tall figure was as straight as a mountain, his cold and hard lines, and his chiseled facial features. He was like a high and mighty monarch, as if all the wind and clouds in the sky were gathered in his eyes. You may all rise. His voice was as cold and unyielding as ever. Everyone stood up, but most didn't dare to raise their heads. Long Fei Yi had chased after Han Yunqing all the way here. He had been watching and listening from the rooftop, so he more or less understood the situation. His cold gaze landed on He Zhe of the North Court. North Court official, when did Qin Wangfei become a fugitive? How come this prince didn't know? He Zhe of the North Court trembled as he met Long Fei Ye's cold gaze. He immediately lowered his head, his entire body as cold as an ice cellar. Since she was a fugitive, then she had already been imprisoned. The Duke of Qin was questioning why He Zhe of the North Court had arrested her without his permission. Reporting to Your Highness Duke of Qin, this arrest warrant was personally issued by the Empress Dowager. Bringing up Princess Changping wasn't enough to explain, so he could only bring up his master. So, you're using the Empress Dowager to pressure this prince? Long Fei Ye's cold voice became even colder. He Zhe of the North Court knelt down again in fright. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Your Highness Duke of Qin, even if this humble subject had 100 heads, he still wouldn't dare to do such a thing. The situation is like this, the young general was attacked by an assassin. When the imperial bodyguards arrived, the young general was already unconscious. Everyone saw Qin Wangfei point a dagger at the young general's stomach. Afterwards, Qin Wangfei said that she would treat him, but unfortunately, she couldn't cure him even after several attempts. General Mu, is that true? Long Fei Ye's cold gaze landed on General Mu. Even the irascible General Mu wilted in front of the Duke of Qin, replying in a low voice, yes. What's going on now? Long Fei Yi asked again. General Mu was a bit hesitant, not knowing what to say. Speak. Long Fei Yi suddenly roared. Everyone trembled in fright, with General Mu shaking the most. He kowtowed 3 times and reported everything in detail, including Mu Qingwu's poison acting up. So, you arrested her without any evidence, and now you're trying to stop me when I'm trying to save her? No. Your Highness Duke of Qin, the Empress Dowager is just being cautious. After all, Qin Wangfei is also a suspect. That's why this humble subject ordered this humble subject to imprison Wangfei first and invite an imperial physician to diagnose her. That's right. Imperial Uncle Qin, Imperial Grandmother dotes on Imperial Sister-in-law, but we still have to do things according to the law. Moreover, Han Yunqing hasn't even woken up Qinggu Gij yet. Who doesn't know that she's the Han family's trash? How can we trust her medical skills? Imperial Uncle Qin, you should let us go in and take a look first. What if? Before Princess Changping could finish speaking, Long Fei Ye's cold gaze drifted over, causing her to timidly shut her mouth. Long Fei Yi clasped his hands behind his back and nodded. Indeed, We should do things according to the law. Hearing this, Hezei of the North Court and Princess Changping both let out sighs of relief. Princess Changping knew that in Imperial Uncle Qin's eyes, Han Yunqing was nothing more than a servant girl. Imperial Uncle Qin hated her too much, so how could he protect her? Once the atmosphere relaxed, Hezei of the North Court timidly said, "Duke of Qin, how about we let the imperial physician go in case," unexpectedly, Long Feiyi coldly interrupted, "If we disturb her and affect the antidote, will you take responsibility?" Take responsibility for the young general's life? Take responsibility for Qin Wangfei's crimes? Hezei of the North Court was scared out of his wits. "Your Highness Duke of Qin, this old subject believes in esteemed Wangfei. Just let esteemed Wangfei treat him alone," the Grand General earnestly said. With Gu Beiyue's reminder, he no longer trusted the imperial physician Princess Changping brought. Long Feiyi stepped aside from the door and coldly swept his gaze over the crowd. "Is there anyone else who wants to go in?" The North Court official and Mu Luyue timidly looked towards Princess Changping. Princess Changping wanted to go in, but she didn't have the guts. "Since there's no one else, then please wait a moment," North Court official, Long Feiyi indifferently said. Chapter 34. I don't dare, I don't dare. How could Hezei of the North Court endure the word please? However, Long Feiyi continued, "If Qin Wangfei can't save Mu Qingguo, then bring her back and do your job properly. If Qin Wangfei can save Mu Qingguo," he paused, his voice suddenly cold, "you don't have enough evidence to lock up this Princess Wangfei, so don't blame this prince for doing his job properly." Hezei of the North Court quivered, scared silly. He wasn't sure if Han Yunqing was saving or harming someone. He had always listened to Princess Changping and the Empress Dowager. Everyone waited in trepidation, no one feeling confident. Princess Changping and Mu Luyue both hoped that Mu Qingguo would be fine, but didn't want Han Yunqing to escape punishment. They were both conflicted and nervous. The handkerchief in their hands was about to be crushed. The servants brought in a stool. Long Feiyi sat domineeringly at the door, like a god who looked down on everything. He said to wait. Even if he waited for 3 days and 3 nights, no one would be able to move him. The more Hezei of the North Court thought, the more afraid he became. He wasn't like the others. He was just a small justice. Mu Qingguo's life and death had nothing to do with him. If this continued, if Mu Qingguo really woke up, he would be finished. No, he had to think of a way to get in. But who knew that at this time, the sound of knocking could be heard from behind Long Feiyi. The person inside was knocking on the door. For a moment, the entire crowd was silent. Everyone's gaze focused on the door. The sound of knocking seemed to be knocking on everyone's hearts. Dong, dong, dong. There were only Mu Qingguo and Han Yunqing in the room. Who could be knocking on the door? Long Fei lazily rose to his feet and personally removed the chair. The door had been bolted from the outside, and the broken lock was still hanging from its hinges. Did Han Yunqing cure Mu Qingguo's poison? General Mu was both excited and nervous. He wanted nothing more than to push the door open. However, seeing that the Duke of Qin had no intention of moving aside, he could only suppress his anxiety. Long Feiyi wasn't in a hurry to open the door. Instead, he looked at Hezei of the North Court meaningfully. Hezei of the North Court's heart was about to jump out of his chest. His legs went soft and his vision turned black. He didn't know what the outcome would be. He really wanted to close his eyes and not watch. Long Feiyi personally removed the chair, removed the iron chain, and pulled open the door bolt. Everyone's eyes were fixed on his hands. Following his every movement, no one was not scared witless and held their breaths. The people inside seemed to have heard the sound of the door bolt being pulled open and stopped knocking. This time, the whole place became even more silent. Thump, thump, thump. Everyone's heart was beating wildly. Abruptly, Long Fei pushed open the door. Bang! At this moment, Hizei of the North Court's heart almost jumped out of his chest. He saw a person standing inside the door. His figure was tall and straight, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. His facial features were especially deep. Although his face was as white as paper, the charm in his large eyes was still there, shining with a candid light. This person was none other than young General Mu Qingguo. He was awake. Not only was he awake, his eyes were bright as he stood at the door. His angry gaze was fixed on Hizei of the North Court. He woke up just after the poison was cured. When his wound was bandaged, Han Yunqing told him everything. Everyone had yet to regain their senses when Mu Qingguo suddenly shouted angrily, "Hizei of the North Court, what is the meaning of this? Qin Wangfei is this general's savior. What right do you have to say that she was an assassin and frame her for misdiagnosis? What right do you have to lock her up? Without her, this general's life would have been long gone. What, do you also wish for this general to die?" Heavens, Mu Qingguo actually woke up. Han Yunqing really saved him and woke him up. It's over, it's over, it's all over. Hizei of the North Court's legs trembled and he almost collapsed. It's a misunderstanding. Young general, this official is innocent. This official really didn't know that Qin Wangfei could save you. Mu Qingguo angrily glared at General Mu. Father. Qin Wangfei has no enmity with this child, so why would she harm this child? How could she be an assassin? That day, this child was poisoned by an assassin. It was Qin Wangfei who saved this child. This child only lost consciousness after seeing her. General Mu's face turned red as he felt ashamed. Father, I was just worried, you've become muddle-headed. You almost took the lives of esteemed Wangfei and this child. Mu Qingguo reprimanded. General Mu already knew that he was wrong and quickly knelt down. Old man was wrong. Wrong. Mu Qingguo was filled with righteousness and anger. He clutched his wound and walked over the threshold. Just as he was about to continue reprimanding, he noticed that Duke of Qin, Long Fei Yi, was standing to the side. He jumped in fright and immediately knelt down to greet him. With the Duke of Qin present, how could he speak so loudly? Forget it. Where's Han Yunqing? Long Fei Yi asked. At this time, Han Yunqing had just finished tidying up. She washed her hands and walked out just in time to hear Long Fei Yi say her name. She didn't know if it was because his deep voice was very pleasant to hear or if it was because her name was pleasant to hear, but in any case, Han Yunqing felt very comfortable when she heard it. Qinxia is here. Han Yunqing was very obedient. She walked out with a docile face and obediently stood by his side. In a flash, everyone's gazes shifted from Mu Qingguo to Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing. After all, no one had ever seen the two of them stand together since their wedding. As for the relationship between the two of them, no one knew. Han Yunqing, who had a petite figure but a powerful aura, stood by Long Fei Yi's side. In an instant, she looked like a little bird relying on its master. As soon as Han Yunqing entered the gates of the Duke of Qin's estate, there were all sorts of bad rumors circulating outside. Some even predicted that Han Yunqing would never see His Highness Duke of Qin. But this time, Grand Concubine Yi hadn't even made a move. Instead, the Duke of Qin had appeared in person, surprising everyone. Could it be that Han Yunqing had turned over a new leaf because of her beauty? Just what was the Duke of Qin's attitude towards her? Why did you escape from prison? Long Fei Yi asked. Escape from prison? Only criminals escape from prison. I didn't commit any crimes, right? I don't count as a fugitive, right? Han Yunqing's face was innocent as she turned to ask sincerely. North Court official, what you say counts. Do you think I escaped from prison? As soon as Mu Qingguo woke up, Han Yunqing had told him everything. With Mu Qingguo as the witness, even the emperor had no chance of convicting her. Since Long Fei Yi was here, he wouldn't let her suffer any losses. He couldn't be here to lose face, right? The current Han Yunqing was full of confidence. Escape from prison. Faced with this question, He of the North Court wanted to kill himself. No, esteemed Wang Fei didn't commit any crimes. She's not a fugitive. If I didn't commit any crimes, then why did you imprison me? Han Yunqing asked seriously. He of the North Court panicked. His logic was all messed up and he didn't know how to explain himself. He knelt down and kowtowed. It's a misunderstanding, it's really a misunderstanding. This official kowtows to esteemed Wang Fei and apologizes to esteemed Wang Fei. Esteemed Wang Fei, please spare my life. Han Yunqing blinked her innocent eyes. Your Highness, does the North Court official mean to say that he's framing me? Misunderstanding and framing were two completely different things. Framing the Duke of Qin's official consort. This crime wasn't a small one. He of the North Court stiffened. He wanted to cry, but it was useless even if he cried himself to death. He could only continue kowtowing and pleading. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please spare my life. Esteemed Wang Fei, please spare my life. This official knows his wrongs, he knows his wrongs. Han Yunqing's eyes flashed with hatred. That night, when he splashed her with ice water and sent people to assassinate her, did He of the North Court ever think of his current fate? If Long Fei Yi hadn't appeared in time to stop this group of people, Mu Qingguo would have already died from the poison. As for her, the evidence was conclusive. She had committed a capital crime. No matter how much He of the North Court kowtowed, Han Yunqing remained indifferent. If people respect me a foot, I'll respect them 10 feet. If people destroy my 3 grains, I'll steal their 3 grains. She was a doctor, not a saint. She wouldn't save everyone. She was a little girl, not a man. She didn't have the magnanimity to forgive those who harmed her. With Long Fei Yi as her strong backing, Han Yunqing knew that the tables had turned. She calmly looked towards Princess Changping. Princess Changping's heart felt guilty. She didn't even have time to be happy that Mu Qingguo was awake. She resentfully lowered her head. However, the hatred in her heart was too strong. She couldn't accept the reality in front of her eyes. Han Yunqing, this trash, actually saved her Qingguo Gij. Even Han Yunqing's father was powerless. Where did Han Yunqing's ability come from? She didn't believe it. She saw that Qingguo Gij's chest was also wrapped in bandages. Heavens knew what this woman had done to him in the room. A woman looking at a man's body? Did she have any shame? What she couldn't accept the most was that as soon as Qingguo Gij woke up, he actually got out of bed and got angry. Wasn't this all to protect Han Yunqing and testify for her? Normally, when Qingguo Gij protected Mu Luyue, his biological sister, she would feel jealous. How could he protect another woman? Princess Changping lowered her head, but not her heart. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Long Fei Yi didn't have the leisure to stay here and listen to someone beg for mercy. He impatiently glanced at He of the North Court and coldly said, "This prince already said that official matters must be done according to the law. Men, take them away and hand them over to the Ministry of Appointments for punishment." As soon as these words were spoken, the soldiers under He of the North Court all rushed forward. To be able to serve the Duke of Qin, even if it was just once, would be the glory of a lifetime. This was undoubtedly a resounding slap to He of the North Court's face. He of the Northern Court couldn't care less about losing face. He rushed over to Princess Changping's side, kneeling and begging. "Princess Changping, this lowly official will listen to you on this matter. You have to explain this lowly official and plead for leniency." The Duke of Qin had already interfered in this matter. More importantly, Mu Qingguo had also woken up. The Empress Dowager would naturally restrain herself and clear all responsibility. Once this matter was handed over to the Ministry of Appointments, not only would He of the North Court lose his position, he would also be severely punished. Princess Changping kicked He of the North Court aside. "You still dare to speak? weren't you the one who instigated me? Men, take him away. He Zay of the North Court cried out, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. It was Mu Lu. Before He Zay of the North Court could finish speaking, Mu Luyue stuffed his mouth shut. You dog official, you almost took my brother's life. It was all you who instigated Princess Changping. The Duke of Qin is impartial and won't allow you to quibble. Mu Luyue's face was full of righteousness, but her heart was anxious. She was afraid that the Duke of Qin would find out the truth and have a bad impression of her. Unfortunately, despite her efforts in acting, the Long Fei Yi treated her like air and didn't even spare her a glance. Han Yunqing watched Mu Luyue's performance, her heart filled with anger. Even if she and this big ice cube were only a couple in name, they were still husband and wife. You're using tricks to curry favor, do you think I don't exist? Thinking up to here, Han Yunqing smiled lightly. Third Miss Mu, speaking of which, the one who's been saying that I have ulterior motives and want to harm your brother is you, right? Chapter 35. After being exposed in front of everyone, Mu Luyue panicked. I was only worried about my brother's safety. In that situation, who knew if you had good intentions or bad intentions? A woman like you shouldn't hold on to such a small mistake. Unfilial daughter, why aren't you shutting up? Pa! A swift and severe whip sound cut off the rest of Mu Luyue's words. Ah! Father! You hit me. The wound on Mu Luyue's arm was even deeper than Han Yunqing's the other day, leaving a deep gash on her arm. General Mu's anger soared to the heavens. This old man is hitting you. At such a young age, you're already so vicious. Qin Wangfei was sincerely treating the patient, but you made wild guesses and went against Wangfei at every turn. You almost took your brother's life. Shouldn't this kind of unfilial daughter be hit? After saying this, he lashed out with the whip again. Mu Luyue's body had another bloody wound. She was so scared that she covered her head with both hands and cried bitterly. Don't hit me. Father, I know I was wrong. Woo-woo. I won't do it again, I won't do it again. General Mu threw down the whip and knelt in front of Han Yunqing. Esteemed Wangfei, this old official thanks you for saving my son. As he spoke, he heavily kowtowed. Then he continued, this old official framed you. This old official deserves to be punished. Your Highness Duke of Qin, please punish me. Your Highness Wangfei, please punish me. This crude, barbaric, and simple-minded old thing was actually magnanimous. He admitted his mistakes, unlike He Zay of the North Court and Mu Luyue, who had a lot of excuses. However, this wasn't enough to let him off the hook. He was the main cause of this matter. Han Yunqing had never been so kind. Seeing that Long Fei Yi did not speak for a long time, Han Yunqing boldly made the decision. General Mu, you're already so old. The salt you've eaten is more than the rice we've eaten. Why can't you tell right from wrong? Can't you see right from wrong? Everyone could tell that this right and wrong was a reference to Princess Changping and Mu Luyue. Princess Changping clenched her fists in anger. She wanted to argue, but since the other party didn't mention any names, she couldn't. General Mu nodded repeatedly. This old subject has become muddle-headed. In the future, when you look at people and things, you have to keep your eyes open. You are also a person of virtue and prestige, so this princess will not punish you. I only hope that you remember that this princess is not a waste. As soon as Han Yunqing said this, Long Fei Ye's cold eyes became deep. This woman was quite smart. General Mu was different from the North Court official. General Mu was a general who controlled a large number of troops. Moreover, he wasn't the one who complained, nor was he the one who locked up Han Yunqing. For her to teach him a lesson was already pretty good. How could she really punish him? Han Yunqing's actions left General Mu with a lot of face. The Mu family owed Han Yunqing a favor. Yes. This old subject will obey. A trace of admiration flashed in General Mu's eyes as he straightforwardly agreed. After speaking with General Mu, Han Yunqing turned to Princess Changping. Starting from this matter, Han Yunqing had suffered all kinds of grievances because of this unruly and vicious princess. If she didn't teach her a lesson, Han Yunqing wouldn't be able to vent her anger. However, Changping was a noble princess. Punishing her wasn't something that Han Yunqing, the imperial aunt, could do. Han Yunqing looked at Long Feiyi, thinking, will this big ice cube say a few words of justice for me? At this time, Princess Changping also secretly glanced at Long Feiyi. Seeing that his complexion wasn't very good, she felt a bit nervous. Timidly, she came forward and bowed. Imperial Uncle Qin, Changping was worried about Qin Guogij, so I became muddle-headed and listened to slander. That's why I chased after the North Court official to cause trouble. Please forgive me this time. The one who suffered was your imperial aunt, not this prince, Long Feiyi said. These words were out of Han Yunqing's expectations. This guy came, but he pushed everything away. With this kind of unclear attitude, who could figure out his true thoughts? This big ice cube came to save her for the sake of the Duke of Qin's household's face, as well as to cure the poison. Han Yunqing was certain of this. Princess Changping also couldn't figure out these words. However, she didn't believe that Imperial Uncle Qin came for Han Yunqing. The reason he came was more to protect the Duke of Qin's household's face. In front of the Duke of Qin, Princess Changping didn't dare to be too arrogant. Even if there were 100 or 1,000 unwillingness in her heart, she still lowered her head. Imperial aunt, Changping misunderstood you, this apology was said like a mosquito's hum. She couldn't take it lying down. She clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves, her nails digging into her palms. She'd been utterly humiliated today. She snuck a peek at Mu Qinggu, only to see him glaring at her with disgust. Princess Changping was about to go crazy from anger. She secretly bore a grudge. Han Yunqing, it's all because of you. This time, you were lucky. Next time, you definitely won't be so lucky. At this time, Mu Qinggu clutched his wound and knelt down. Many thanks to your Highness Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei for saving my life. Han Yunqing hurriedly reached out to support him. Young general, your injury hasn't healed yet. Hurry and get up. Your wound is about to split open. It'll be enough for you to lie in bed for 8 to 10 days. Mu Qinggu didn't dare to let Han Yunqing support him and hurriedly dodged. In fact, if possible, he really wanted to chat with this woman for a bit longer before opening the door. That day, when he saw this woman walk into the Duke of Qin's household alone, he knew that this woman was different. Unfortunately, his injury was too heavy. As soon as he dodged, his vision darkened and he lost his balance, falling towards Han Yunqing. Qin Guogij! Princess Changping shouted. She dashed over like an arrow and pulled Mu Qinggu over to her side. Mu Qinggu was already unconscious. Princess Changping looked towards Han Yunqing, her face full of anger. Han Yunqing, why did Qin Guogij faint again? Did you do something? Han Yunqing ignored Princess Changping and called General Mu over to support Mu Qinggu to the bed. Han Yunqing checked his pulse before saying, he's been unconscious for many days. His body doesn't have enough energy. Let him rest. When he wakes up, feed him some millet congee. He can only start to nourish himself after 3 days. Take it step by step and don't overdo it. General Mu nodded repeatedly. Many thanks to Qin Wangfei. The Mu household will remember your life-saving grace. Seeing this scene, Princess Changping's heart burned with anger. General Mu, why do you listen to this woman? Qin Guogij was fine just now, but now he's fainted. There must be a problem. General Mu's heart burned with anger. He wanted nothing more than to whip Princess Changping like he did to Mu Luiyue. Unfortunately, Changping was a princess and wasn't someone he could discipline. He had no choice but to endure. However, he had already made up his mind. Princess Changping was unruly and willful. With her around, there wouldn't be any good days in the household. No matter what, he definitely wouldn't let Princess Changping marry into the Mu household. After taking a few deep breaths, General Mu calmed himself down. Coldly, he said, "Your Highness, Qinggu is fine for now. Please return." Princess Changping immediately shook her head. "No, I want to guard him. If he doesn't wake up, I won't return. I want to take care of him. Your Highness, you're a golden branch and jade leaf. A single word from you can take our Qinggu's life. Qinggu can't afford your care." General Mu couldn't help but spit it out. He couldn't hit the princess, but he could at least say a few words. Princess Changping wasn't stupid. She could hear the mockery in his words. She pursed her lips and was about to cry. "General Mu, are you blaming me? I didn't do it on purpose. Your Highness misunderstands. This old subject doesn't dare. This old subject only feels that men and women shouldn't touch each other. If your Highness stays, people will gossip. It's better if you return," General Mu said coldly. At the side, Han Yunqing was about to laugh out loud. Anyone could see Princess Changping's admiration for Mu Qinggu. With her status, this marriage should have been in the bag. However, with her stirring up trouble this time, it would be strange if General Mu could tolerate her. If General Mu didn't agree, even the Emperor and Empress Dowager couldn't force him. If Princess Changping wanted to marry into the Mu estate, it would be wishful thinking. However, this was her reaping what she sowed. Han Yunqing wouldn't feel pity for her. Princess Changping also knew that General Mu didn't approve of their marriage, but even so, he'd never speak to her like this before. She wanted to say more, but General Mu's expression was cold. Her eyes couldn't help but sting. Turning her head, she saw Han Yunqing looking at her with a smile. Her heart burned with anger. "What are you laughing at? Sooner or later, you'll cry." Princess Changping fiercely roared. Stomping her foot, she turned and ran away with tears in her eyes. Han Yunqing didn't mind at all. Looking at Princess Changping's departing figure, her lips hooked up in a cheerful smile. "Princess Changping, let's see how long you can hold on. The poison from that day in the Supreme Court's prison will soon act up. This is a modern virus. In the ancient times, no one can cure you. When the time comes, let's see who's the one crying." Han Yunqing didn't say much. She left behind a few packets of medicinal herbs and gave detailed instructions to General Mu on how to change the medicine, as well as all the taboo matters. General Mu noted it all down. At the door, Long Feiyi watched everything without batting an eyelid. At this time, he finally opened his mouth. His voice was almost devoid of warmth. "Han Yunqing, you should go back now, right?" In her anxiety, she'd actually left this great deity hanging at the door. "I'll go back now." She ran out with a smile on her face. She had a faint feeling that this guy wasn't very happy. Fine, she'd entered the prison just a few days after their marriage. As the husband, he really didn't have much to be happy about. General Mu and the others hurriedly came out to send her off. Long Feiyi didn't say anything else and turned to leave. He had such a cold personality. He was like an iceberg, but also like a mystery. Everyone was afraid of him and curious about him. Han Yunqing obediently followed. Thinking back to the warning she'd given Princess Changping, she felt it was funny. She'd really hit the nail on the head and let this guy Long Feiyi bring her home. Long Feiyi's legs were long and he walked very quickly. Han Yunqing had to jog to keep up. Finally, when she was about to leave General Mu's residence, she remembered something. Gu Beiyue. Gu Beiyue was still locked up in the prison. That guy was secretly locked up by Hizei of the North Court. Not many people knew about it. He wouldn't be tortured, right? Seeing Long Feiyi get on the carriage, Han Yunqing timidly said, "Your Highness, I forgot something. Can you wait for me?" As soon as the words left her mouth, Han Yunqing regretted it. How could a great deity like Long Fei Yi wait for her? Thus, just as Long Fei Yi was about to speak, she hurriedly said, "Your Highness, how about you go back first? I'll be back soon." Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi didn't even spare her a glance. He directly lowered the curtain and said coldly, "If I don't see you in the hibiscus courtyard in an hour, you'll have to bear the consequences." He was so cold that he didn't even ask her what the matter was and had the coachman leave. Han Yunqing was stunned. So cold. She shivered and hurriedly turned back to ask General Mu for the life and death agreement. She also had General Mu quickly go to the Supreme Court to release her. Chapter 36. After explaining things clearly, Han Yunqing rushed back to the Duke of Qin's estate right on time. In his sleeping quarters, Long Fei Yi had already changed his clothes and was reclining in a rocking chair in his study. His soft, golden robes accentuated his innate nobility to the extreme. This was the first time Han Yunqing had seen a man who could wear nouveau riche gold so well. It was easy to feel inferior in front of him. Han Yunqing adjusted her breathing and stepped forward. "Your Highness. The 3 ingredients are on the table. You can start making the antidote now," Long Fei Yi said mildly without sparing her a glance. Han Yunqing glanced at the short table on the side and saw 3 large piles of ingredients: purple summer, purple autumn, and purple winter. Goodness gracious, these ingredients weren't easy to find. She never expected this guy to find such a large pile. Han Yunqing was secretly delighted. Actually, she only needed a small amount. The rest could be used to expand the detox system's inventory. These ingredients could be used to treat many different poisons according to different formulas. "Your Highness, please wait a moment. Qinxie will come over as soon as she's done," Han Yunqing said as she prepared to put the ingredients into her medical pouch. But Long Fei Yi's cold gaze turned towards her. "Just make the antidote here. Your lordship wants to see it for himself." This guy was still suspecting her. Han Yunqing secretly rolled her eyes. "Suspect all you want. In any case, you'll never guess the truth. Your Highness, Qinxie doesn't have any other ingredients on hand. I'll have to go back to Leisurely Cloud Pavilion to make them. If this official is interested, there's no harm in coming with Qinxie," Han Yunqing said with a smile. Leisurely Cloud Pavilion? Long Fei Yi was curious. He didn't remember the Duke of Qin's estate having such a place. Qinxie fixed up the abandoned loft in the northwest corner and named it Leisurely Cloud Pavilion. "In the future, Qinxie will live there so as to avoid disturbing your Highness," Han Yunqing replied honestly. Actually, she was a bit nervous, afraid that this fellow would chase her out of the hibiscus courtyard to face off against Grand Concubine Yi and Murong Wanru. But he didn't have any objections, and simply nodded before rising to leave with her. Han Yunqing secretly let out a sigh of relief and nimbly put the 3 herbs into her medical pouch. Long Fei Yi didn't pay much attention to this action. He didn't know that Han Yunqing's actions were just a cover-up. She had already put the 3 herbs into the detoxification system and strictly followed the proportions of the other herbs to prepare it. She also automatically adjusted the temperature of the brewing process. From Long Fei Yi's sleeping quarters to Han Yunqing's Leisurely Cloud Pavilion, they had to pass through the garden. This amount of time was enough for the detoxification system to prepare the drug. Han Yunqing secretly took it out and hid it in her medical pouch. When they arrived at the entrance of the Leisurely Cloud Pavilion, Long Fei Yi asked, "What is a Leisurely Cloud Pavilion?" "The clouds have no heart, and the water is idle." Han Yunqing said indifferently and turned her head to look at him. "Your Highness, Qinxie married into the Duke of Qin's household and only asked for a corner of the Leisurely Cloud Pavilion." Actually, what Han Yunqing wanted to say to Long Fei Yi was, "Dear, don't doubt me. I was forced to marry into the Duke of Qin's household. I don't have any ulterior motives. I only want to live a peaceful and ordinary life alone. I won't provoke you, and you shouldn't provoke me either." However, she was very clear that if she said it so bluntly, Long Fei Yi would definitely kill her with his gaze. Didn't the ancients like to express their feelings and aspirations through poetry? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. The clouds have no heart, and the water is idle. This was one of Bai Zhiyi's famous lines. Han Yunqing thought that Long Fei Yi would be stunned. Unfortunately, he only looked at her for a moment. His face was expressionless as he walked into the pavilion without a word. Not only was this guy's face paralyzed, his heart was probably paralyzed as well. Han Yunqing followed him in and found Long Fei Yi sitting by the tea table. He was currently sizing up her little world. This guy's body, which was as proud as a mountain, immediately filled her little living room with pressure. As soon as he saw her enter, he withdrew his gaze and said coldly, "Can we start preparing the medicine now?" Chinchia will go get a few ingredients." Han Yunqing was especially respectful. "You're that curious, right? Today, I'll let you experience it." Under Long Fei Yi's piercing gaze, Han Yunqing took a few medicinal herbs and a pestle for grinding medicine from the side of the small study. Then, in front of him, she took out a few packets of medicinal herbs and 3 types of medicine from her medical pouch. These packets of medicinal herbs were the antidotes that had just been prepared in the detoxification system. Regardless of whether it was the amount of medicinal herbs, the ratio of mixing, or the temperature of boiling, the timing, they were all perfect. If it was manually prepared, there was no way for it to reach the level of intelligence. Western medicine paid particular attention to precision when making medicine, while Chinese medicine was more vague. However, if the precision of Western medicine was used in Chinese medicine, the results could not be compared to traditional manual medicine. In other words, even if it was the same type of Chinese medicine, the medicine that Han Yunqing took out would be much more effective than any other doctor in this era. How did Long Fei Yi know all of this? Who asked him to be a non-modern professional? The medicinal herbs that Han Yunqing took out from the study were all ordinary anti-inflammatory drugs. Mixing them together with the antidote wouldn't have any effect. "Your Highness, actually, preparing medicine is very simple." Han Yunqing's smile was especially beautiful. As she spoke, she mixed the antidote and some anti-inflammatory medicinal herbs together and put them all into the pestle and pestle. In the end, the prescription is still the most important. As long as you find all the medicinal herbs, put them together and grind them together, it should be more or less done. As Han Yunqing grinded the herbs, she explained in a very professional manner, "Of course, there is also a particular way to grind the herbs. The most important thing is the strength. It can't be too heavy, but it can't be too light." As she spoke, she handed the stone pestle to Long Fei Yi. "Your Highness, do you want to try?" Long Fei Yi had long lost his patience. He asked indifferently, "How much longer do you need?" Han Yunqing's expression was serious as she took out some medicine and spread it on her palm. She sniffed it a little before replying, "I reckon it'll take 2 hours." 2 hours. That was 2 hours. Long Fei Yi immediately stood up. "When you're done, come to my bedchamber to apply the medicine." This was an order. Without waiting for Han Yunqing to reply, he left after saying that. "All right, Your Highness, take care." Han Yunqing was overjoyed. She sent him all the way to the door. Seeing that he was far away, she finally couldn't hold back her laughter. She told him to doubt her again. If there was a next time, she would definitely make him even more bored. After closing the door, Han Yunqing didn't grind the herbs anymore. She put them all into the detoxification system to resolve them. 2 hours, ah. It was enough for her to take a good bath and nap for a while. The matter at the great general's estate had tormented her for many days. If she didn't rest soon, this sickly glass body of hers wouldn't be able to withstand it. 2 hours later, Han Yunqing appeared outside Long Fei Yi's study, feeling refreshed. She realized that this fellow was reading. He was leaning lazily against the warm couch with a book in his hand. The way he looked with his head lowered and brows furrowed, he was as handsome as a celestial in a painting. It felt especially surreal. For some reason, Han Yunqing couldn't help but recall the scene of that night in the darkness. The light of the lanterns had shone on his bronze chest, revealing the distinct lines of his muscles and his wild, untamed appearance. It had been so captivating that it shook her heart and soul. Damn it, she was here to apply the medicine. She hadn't even touched it yet, so how could she let her imagination run wild? Biting her lip, Han Yunqing walked in. Your Highness, you can apply the medicine now. Long Fei Yi put down his book and sat up. Only then did he look over at her. Those dark and deep eyes stared straight at her. For some reason, Han Yunqing's heart skipped a beat. She subconsciously avoided his gaze. Why did she feel so timid? This timidness wasn't fear, but a kind of nervousness. Wasn't it just applying medicine? It was so simple that she could do it with her eyes closed. What was she nervous about? Han Yunqing inwardly ridiculed herself. She walked forward with her head lowered. She took out some medicinal herbs and some supplementary items from her medical bag while doing some mental preparation. Very quickly, she recovered. She raised her head and met Long Fei Ye's deep and domineering gaze. With a serious and professional tone, she said, "Take off your shirt. Golden silk robe and pure white undershirt." Even when this guy took off his clothes, his movements were so elegant and noble. Among his firm and refined muscles, there was a shocking scar. It was as if a centipede was perched on his bronze chest. It was sinister, but also rough and wild. She didn't expect that in just a few days, this guy's wound had actually healed. It had to be known that poisoned wounds healed slower than normal wounds. Han Yunqing looked at him in disbelief. In addition, her ears were a little red. This scene made Long Fei Yi very unhappy. Have you seen enough? If you've seen enough, then apply the medicine. Long Fei Ye's tone was cold and impatient. Han Yunqing suddenly raised her head to look at him. Her face was even more incredulous. However, she met Long Fei Ye's disgusted gaze. What did this guy mean? What did he think she was looking at? Although she was a little love-struck, that was a normal woman's pursuit of beauty, all right. In a moment, all her nervousness was replaced by anger. Right away. As she spoke, she didn't bring the medicine. Instead, she brought a knife and placed it over the fire to roast. What are you doing? Long Fei Yi coldly asked. Performing an operation. Your self-healing ability is too good. Your wound has already healed. The medicine can't penetrate it in a short period of time, so I can only open the wound. Han Yunqing replied in a serious manner. Actually, it was fine not to use this method. As long as she added a few more medicines to the antidote to strengthen the medicine, the effect would be the same. However, Long Fei Ye's disgusted gaze made her very unhappy. In this world, there were two kinds of people that you should never offend. One was a hairdresser, and the other was a doctor. The former would make you ugly to the point that you wished you were dead. The latter would make you in so much pain that you wished you were dead. Are you sure? Long Fei Yi looked at her suspiciously. I'm sure. Han Yunqing was meticulous as she explained, Your Highness, it's fine if you don't perform an operation. However, if you don't perform an operation, these medicines may take half a month to extract the poison from your body. You can decide for yourself. He only had 10 days, and 7 days had already passed. This feeling of being controlled by someone made Long Fei Yi feel very uncomfortable. However, he could only find Han Yunqing to secretly detoxify the poison. Perform an operation. He agreed. Adding an operation to the wound made the pain much more terrifying than a direct operation. Han Yunqing was very much looking forward to the change in his expression. She really didn't show any mercy, but who would have thought that after the operation, Long Fei Yi actually frowned. His expression was cold as he looked down at his wound. Good heavens, what kind of pain would make him frown? Han Yunqing found that her thoughts were too excessive. She restrained her thoughts and hurriedly applied medicine. Her movements were a lot lighter, trying to reduce the pain as much as possible. Very quickly, the medicine was applied to the wound, and the bandages were wrapped to stabilize it. The matter was settled. "All right, I'll come tomorrow morning to get the medicine and treat the wound," Han Yunqing said seriously. "You don't need to change the medicine?" Long Feiyi asked. Chapter 37. There's no need. In one day, this medicine will suck out all the remaining poison from the body. The wound can't touch water and don't press on the wound when you sleep at night, Han Yunqing explained seriously. Actually, if this fellow wasn't afraid of pain, cutting him open was indeed the fastest way. Long Feiyi nodded and waved his hand lightly, indicating that she could withdraw. At this moment, Han Yunqing, who was carrying the medical pouch, looked like a servant. "All right, she'll endure it." The next morning, Han Yunqing came to collect the medicine. As she said, all the poison had been absorbed by the antidote. The medicine, which had originally emitted a sweet fragrance, was now filled with a foul odor. Han Yunqing simply bandaged the wound. This time, Long Feiyi's poison was completely cured. She thought that Long Feiyi would say something, but who knew that after she put away the medicine, Long Feiyi still acted arrogantly and waved his hand, indicating for her to leave. What an arrogant and heartless fellow, Han Yunqing thought to herself. She didn't immediately leave, but bowed and sincerely said, "Your Highness, thank you for the matter of the great general's estate." Although she knew that Mu Qingwu's matter was for the sake of the Duke of Qin's estate's face and for the sake of curing the poison, he still saved her life. Who knew that Long Feiyi's tone would be cold? "You know how to cure the poison, but you're not a bodhisattva. Remember your status, mind your own business, and don't go out. Do you understand?" Han Yunqing resentfully replied, "Yes, Qinxie will remember. Qinxie will take her leave." She silently thought that as long as he was a good person, she really couldn't do something like not saving him. As for going out less, hee, Han Yunqing sneered. Qinxie can't do it. She might as well die if she had to sit at home for the rest of her life and be responsible for eating, drinking, shitting, and sleeping. Touching the remaining 3 tails in her sleeve, Han Yunqing thought that women, no matter what era they were in, must have a career. Being a fake couple with Long Feiyi and minding their own business wasn't a bad idea. Once she settled down in the Duke of Qin's residence, she would have to find something for herself to do. Otherwise, where would she go to get money? For the next few days, Han Yunqing didn't see Long Feiyi when she was strolling in the garden. This guy came and went like a ghost. She guessed that he had left long ago. However, Long Feiyi actually sent a maidservant for her to use. Her name was Qin Xiang, and she was a bit younger than Han Yunqing. She was about 15 or 16 years old. She was petite, clean and pretty, and had a clever personality. When she smiled, she was particularly shy. Han Yunqing took a look at it and liked it. "Do you know martial arts?" Han Yunqing asked curiously. Qin Xiang shook her head. "No." "Where did you work before?" Han Yunqing asked again. "My family lives in Creek Village on the western outskirts. I was bought here yesterday by a big brother called Chu Shifeng," Qin Xiang replied obediently. "Then did he tell you anything?" Han Yunqing asked again. "He told this servant to listen to esteemed Wang Fei's words. He said that if I served esteemed Wang Fei well, esteemed Wang Fei would reward me handsomely," Qin Xiang said honestly. "Handsomely rewarded?" Han Yunqing's mouth twitched into a fake smile. She told Qin Xiang the first thing she needed to do. When Murong Wanru came looking for her, she said she was sleeping and had no time. As a result, Murong Wanru invited her to drink tea and was rejected. She invited her to go shopping and was rejected. This morning, she sent someone to invite her to go on an outing and was rejected again. Grand Concubine Yi wasn't at home, so Murong Wanru's status couldn't force her to do anything. Although little Chen Xiang was young, she was diligent and capable. With her taking care of trifling matters, Han Yunqing felt much more relaxed. Of course, she couldn't idle around either. Over the next few days, she inspected the detox system. It was similar to a space with many smaller spaces inside. One was used to check for poisons, another to make medicine, and another to store medicine and medical supplies. Han Yunqing lay in the courtyard, sunbathing as her mind wandered to the detox system. She discovered that there were still unknown spaces in the system that her consciousness couldn't enter. That's strange. Could it be an area that hasn't been developed yet? The researchers hadn't mentioned them to her before. Han Yunqing was very curious, but she knew it was useless. She couldn't figure out such things even if she cracked her head. Fortunately, the few spaces in the detox system were enough for her to squander. Withdrawing her consciousness from the detox system, Han Yunqing raised her head to enjoy the warm winter sun. Princess Chumping's ringworm poison should have flared up by now, right? For someone who loved to look pretty, it was amusing to cover her face and ask for medical help. While she was secretly rejoicing, little Chen Xiang jogged over. Esteemed Wang Fei, someone came to the courtyard gates. They said you had guests. Guests? Who could come to the Duke of Qin's estate to find Han Yunqing? Who is it? Han Yunqing opened her eyes in confusion. The mama said it was an honored guest waiting in the guest hall. Something about a young general and an imperial physician. She spoke too quickly, so your servant didn't hear clearly, Chen Xiang replied. Mu Qinggu and Gu Beiyue. Han Yunqing was immediately amused as she rose to her feet. She actually wanted to see Gu Beiyue and thank him in person, but she couldn't find a chance to go out. She didn't know where to look. Long Fei Yi didn't like her going out, so she had to restrain herself a bit. She never thought that Gu Beiyue and Mu Qinggu would come knocking on her door. Han Yunqing changed her clothes before leaving the courtyard. As soon as she arrived in the guest hall, she saw Gu Beiyue and Mu Qinggu sitting and drinking tea. Gu Beiyue was still wearing his white robes, looking cultured and refined. Mu Qinggu no longer had his sickly appearance, standing in the standard military posture with bright eyes. Seeing Han Yunqing come in, the two of them were happy and bowed. This humble subject greets Qin Wang Fei. May esteemed Wang Fei be blessed. No need for formalities, sit. Han Yunqing was in a good mood. Mu Qinggu didn't say anything else and immediately knelt in front of Han Yunqing. His hands clenched into fists. Esteemed Wang Fei, this humble subject came today to thank you for saving my life. Quickly stand up. Didn't you already thank me that day? Han Yunqing smiled. That day was that day. Today, this humble subject has come to formally thank you. This humble subject has nothing to repay you with. If there is anything this humble subject needs in the future, esteemed Wang Fei will definitely ask. Mu Qinggu was very serious. His dark eyes shined as he looked straight into Han Yunqing's eyes. This kind of serious big boy was really cute. Han Yunqing nodded, all right, I'll remember it. As she spoke, she took out a life and death certificate and faced Gu Beiyue. Dr. Gu, I think I should also properly thank you. Seeing that thing, Dr. Gu was stunned at first. He immediately stopped Han Yunqing from bowing. Esteemed Wang Fei, you can't. Gu Beiyue was also serious as his brows tightly knit together. When Han Yunqing saw this, she really wanted to reach out and smooth it out for him. This kind of warm man really wasn't suited to frown. Thank you very much. Han Yunqing handed over the life and death certificate with both hands in a very sincere manner. In this matter, only Gu Beiyue was trying to save her without any ulterior motives. Gu Beiyue looked at the black and white words on the white paper and lightly said, Esteemed Wang Fei, please destroy this thing for me. Actually, this humble one came here too. Before Gu Beiyue could finish speaking, Han Yunqing already knew what he was going to say. I was the one who sniffed out the poison. In the imperial prison, she had promised him that as long as she could save Mu Qingguo, she would tell him how to detect the poison even if she was empty-handed. Han Yunqing didn't want to lie, but if she were to tell Gu Beiyue about the existence of the detoxification system, Gu Beiyue probably wouldn't be able to understand it for the rest of his life. She could only say this. But as soon as she said this, a familiar voice carried over. I sniffed it out. Sister-in-law's nose is very formidable. This voice. Murong Wanru. She walked in with slow steps, dressed in a light yellow robe. Her body was delicate, especially that tiny waist that could be held in one hand. Her figure was lovely and moving, as was her face. Murong Wanru was born a servant girl. Although Grand Concubine Yi had taken her as a foster daughter, she didn't have a title. When she saw Gu Beiyue and the young general, she still had to pay her respects. Her body was as light as a swallow's, making one want to support her. See here, Mu Qingguo immediately took pity on her. Miss Murong is too courteous. Hurry and rise. Murong Wanru nodded gently before rising to sit by Han Yunqing's side, her eyes hooded. Sister-in-law, you're still blaming me, aren't you? I've already begged you 3 times. You should at least listen to my explanation. Han Yunqing was at a loss at her inexplicable words. Could it be that Miss Wanru has some unspeakable secret that prevented her from inviting Grand Concubine Yi that night? Gu Beiyue spoke up. Han Yunqing finally remembered. Actually, she hadn't counted on Murong Wanru to save her. It was already good enough that she didn't hit her while she was down. If Murong Wanru hadn't mentioned it, she really would have forgotten. Moreover, the 3 times Murong Wanru had sought her out, it was either to drink tea or to go shopping. She hadn't even brought up the matter. Apologizing to her now was just putting on an act in front of Gu Beiyue and Mu Qingguo to protect her image. After all, if Gu Beiyue spread the news, her reputation would be ruined. Murong Wanru sighed and said helplessly, Imperial Physician Gu, it really was Wanru who didn't handle the matter properly. Wanru is ashamed. As a matter of fact, I've always wanted to see sister-in-law to explain things, but she closed her doors as soon as she came back. As Murong Wanru spoke, she rose to personally pour a cup of tea and offered it to Han Yunqing with both hands before continuing. Sister-in-law, I know you're not a petty person, but this matter is too serious. But I really didn't do it on purpose. Drink some tea and give me a chance to explain, won't you? Why did these words sound more and more like she was calling her petty? If you want to explain, then explain. What's the point of wasting words? Han Yunqing didn't accept the cup of tea, but said coldly, it was Imperial Physician Gu who came to you for help, not me. You should explain things to him. What powerful words. Murong Wanru gave a start, but quickly recovered to say to Imperial Physician Gu, Imperial Physician Gu, I do want to explain things to you. But sister-in-law has been ignoring me for days. I have to ask for her forgiveness first. Han Yunqing was about to throw up. Did she have to step on someone else's foot to save her own image? She cared so much about her image, didn't she? She would ruin it in front of her today. Then hurry up and explain, Han Yunqing said coldly. That night, after Imperial Physician Gu left, I was so anxious that I wanted to leave immediately. But I fainted before I could leave the city gates. As Murong Wanru spoke, she lowered her head pitifully, her voice choked with sobs. Sister-in-law, you also know that my body isn't well. I get dizzy when I'm anxious. I did come back, but I had Xiaoluzi whip his horse to report. Who knew that the wicked servant didn't go, but hid at the door and fell asleep? Sister-in-law, you say this, sister-in-law, it's all my fault. Han Yunqing's lips curled into a mocking smile as she asked, when did you know that Xiaoluzi didn't go to find Imperial Mother? Chapter 38. Murong Wanru thought it over. This morning. I didn't wake up until morning. Seeing that Mu Fei hadn't returned yet, I sent someone out again. Who knew that I'd see little Sixth sleeping by the door? Oh. Han Yunqing dragged out her words meaningfully. So you didn't send anyone else? Han Yunqing had been locked up in the prisons for 3 whole nights. Murong Wanru was at a loss for words. After a while, she said, I went personally, but I couldn't find Mu Fei. Sister-in-law, you know that my words carry little weight, so I couldn't speak up for you. I was anxious, so I could only keep looking for Mu Fei. After all, Grand Concubine Yi doted on her, but she cared more about face. She dared to use Grand Concubine Yi as an excuse to lie, so this girl really had guts. So you didn't send anyone to tell Imperial Physician Gu? Han Yunqing asked next. Murong Wanru furrowed her brows as her eyes glistened with tears. Sister-in-law, I was so anxious. I forgot. Oh. Han Yunqing made another meaningful sound. Then did you find Mu Fei in the end? Han Yunqing kept asking. Murong Wanru shook her head. I didn't. Then I heard the mama at the estate say you came back, so I hurried back. Sister-in-law, I wanted to see you many times to explain, but you didn't want to see me. Hearing this, Han Yunqing sighed at her own inferiority. What an expert liar. Thus, Han Yunqing looked at her seriously. Then why did I hear the Duke of Qin say you were at the estate these past few days? He saw you in the gardens many times. Murong Wanru's face paled at these words. The Duke of Qin, Han Yunqing had told on her. Heavens, what did this woman say to the Duke of Qin? What would he think of her? Reality proved that when you met an expert liar, you had to be better at lying than her. The Duke of Qin, my health isn't good, so I didn't go looking for him every day. But I did send people. At this moment, Murong Wanru's explanation seemed so weak. Gu Beiyue knew what was going on and remained silent. However, Mu Qinggu had always been straightforward. He had a good impression of Murong Wanru before, and now he saw her clearly. He snorted unceremoniously, Miss Murong, there's no need to explain further. We still have things to say to Qin Wangfei, so please make things convenient for us. He was chasing her away. Murong Wanru burst into tears. Her ugly face had clearly been exposed, but she still looked delicate and pitiful, as if she had been framed. I'm sorry. I don't know what misunderstanding there is here. I'm sincerely looking out for you. If you don't forgive me, as she spoke, she actually offered the tea with both hands and knelt down. I'll kneel and never get up. Han Yunqing didn't buy it. She said calmly, it's getting late. If there's anything, let's talk another day. Gu Beiyue and Mu Qinggu exchanged glances before nodding. Before they left, Gu Beiyue gave a soft sigh. Although it wasn't as direct as Mu Qinggu's snort, it still made Murong Wanru's heart feel stifled. She didn't know what he meant, but she knew it couldn't be anything good. She really didn't feel good about it. These two had a lot of weight in high society. As long as they spread the news, Murong Wanru's painstakingly created image would be ruined. This was all Han Yunqing's fault. Why didn't she die in prison? Murong Wanru was filled with hate. Seeing Han Yunqing and the rest walk away, Gue Mama rushed over. Miss, it's fine if she doesn't forgive you. I'm just afraid she'll complain to esteemed imperial concubine. Grand Concubine Yi cared about face the most. She'd even mind half the day if a servant from the Duke of Qin's estate was scolded by the Empress Dowager's people, much less something as serious as Han Yunqing's imprisonment. If Murong Wanru didn't report, she'd be implicated as well. Murong Wanru didn't move, but her eyes flashed with malice. When will Mu Fei come back? Tomorrow is Bodhisattva's birthday. Esteemed imperial concubine will definitely come back today to pay respects to Buddha, but she didn't say when. Miss, look at this matter. Gue Mama was very worried. Once Murong Wanru was punished, her group of servants wouldn't be able to escape either. Murong Wanru only smiled in satisfaction as she straightened her back. Since she's coming back today, I won't get up. I'll just kneel here and admit my wrongs to Mufei. Since she was going to complain, of course she had to get there before Han Yunqing did. Gue Mama understood as soon as she heard these words. She quickly lowered her voice and said, "Miss, don't worry. Once esteemed imperial concubine comes back, that woman's days will be hard. This servant will go keep watch for you right now." Han Yunqing personally sent Gu Beiyue and Mu Qingguo to the gates, but as soon as the carriage left, another gorgeous carriage came galloping towards them. Han Yunqing could tell at a glance that this was Grand Concubine Yi's carriage. Wasn't she supposed to stay in the courtyard for a while? Why did she come back so soon? As soon as Grand Concubine Yi's carriage stopped, Han Yunqing turned to flee, but it was already too late. Gue Mama came out and grabbed Han Yunqing as she shouted, "Good luck to esteemed imperial concubine. Esteemed imperial concubine has finally come back." The old mama's brute strength was extraordinarily strong. Han Yunqing couldn't break free of her grip and was struggling with all her might when Grand Concubine Yi got off the carriage. Seeing this, Grand Concubine Yi grew angry and shouted, "What are you doing? Pulling and tugging at the gates, do you have any sense of shame?" Gue Mama and Han Yunqing both jumped in fright and let go. Han Yunqing secretly rolled her eyes and bowed in greeting. Qinxie respectfully welcomes Mufei back to the estate. Gue Mama fell to her knees with a thump and cried out, "Esteemed imperial concubine, you've finally come back. If you didn't, something would have happened to young miss. Something would have happened. Dog servant, if you have anything to say, say it inside. Haven't you lost enough face for my Duke of Qin's estate?" Grand Concubine Yi scolded. Cold as she shot Han Yunqing a glance, her words and glare even more piercing. Han Yunqing could only lower her head and endure. She was her mother-in-law, an elder, and Grand Concubine. She couldn't afford to provoke her. Grand Concubine Yi was graceful and luxurious, her bearing magnanimous. She didn't seem to take Gue Mama's words to heart, but things changed as soon as everyone entered and shut the doors. Grand Concubine Yi's exquisitely made-up face was terrifyingly gloomy. "Gue Mama, what's going on? I've only been gone for a few days. Could it be that some monkey wants to be king already?" Once again, she targeted Han Yunqing's words. Han Yunqing didn't need to think with her toes to know why Gue Mama had come. It looked like Murong Wanru wasn't planning to let her off. Perhaps she already knew that Grand Concubine Yi was coming back. "Esteemed imperial concubine, hurry and go to the guest hall to take a look. It's such a cold day, but young miss has been kneeling for a long time. No matter what I say, she won't get up. She said she'll kneel until you come back so she can apologize," Gue Mama replied hastily. "What's going on?" Grand Concubine Yi grew alarmed as she hurried to the guest hall. Han Yunqing dearly wanted to seize the chance to slip away, but where could she go? With Grand Concubine Yi's status, even if she hid in the hibiscus courtyard, she'd still come out as soon as Grand Concubine Yi called. Even in modern society, there was power to suppress people, to say nothing of imperial power. There was no hiding from it. Han Yunqing did her best to convince herself to face it and adapt. Seeing Gue Mama look her way, she gave a cold smile and followed after her. As soon as she reached the guest hall, she saw Murong Wanru still kneeling in place, her body stiff and her hands holding up a cup of tea. "Aya, Wanru, what's wrong with you?" Grand Concubine Yi's heart ached at the sight. She strode over to help her up. "Get up, talk things out. Who allowed you to kneel? What if you hurt your knees?" "Mufei, I was wrong. I made a big mistake. I've let you down, let down big brother and sister-in-law, Murong Wanru's face was filled with guilt as she covered her face and wept, heartbroken. Grand Concubine Yi grew even more anxious. "Don't cry. What if you hurt your eyes? No matter how big the matter is, there's Mufei here. Mufei will make decisions for you. Tell me, what's going on?" Murong Wanru raised her head, looking pitiful as her eyes misted over. She was about to speak when she choked with sobs, but didn't say a word before burying her head in sobs again. Grand Concubine Yi sucked in a deep breath and sat down on the seat of honor, her voice stern. Gue Mama, speak. Gue Momo had been waiting for this opportunity and immediately reported the matter. She didn't forget to add oil to the fire. Imperial Concubine Dowager, young Miss was so anxious about this matter that she fainted. She was afraid that Imperial Concubine Dowager would suffer in prison, and she was also afraid that our Duke of Qin's manor would lose face. She sent out servants and went to search for you herself, but couldn't find you. That's why things were delayed. As soon as Gue Mama finished, Murong Wanru opened her mouth and cried, Mufei, don't blame sister-in-law. This was all my fault. I didn't have time to find you. Grand Concubine Yi's cold expression grew uglier and uglier. Her phoenix eyes seemed to turn gloomy before a storm. Gue Mama glanced at Murong Wanru before hastily continuing. As soon as esteemed Wang Fei returned, Miss sent someone to the hibiscus courtyard to seek an audience. She's been there multiple times, wanting to apologize to esteemed Wang Fei. But esteemed Wang Fei refused to see her. When esteemed Wang Fei came out today, Miss offered her tea and even knelt down. But esteemed Wang Fei, she. Finally, Grand Concubine Yi exploded. Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing was on one side and murmured, Qinxie is here. Is Gue Mama speaking the truth? You really went to prison? Did they have an arrest warrant? Grand Concubine Yi asked incredulously. Compared to this, Murong Wanru's grievances were unimportant. Mufei, it was esteemed Empress Dowager who personally issued the arrest warrant. Otherwise, who would dare to touch sister-in-law? Murong Wanru added, choked with sobs. What? Han Yunxi, you. Grand Concubine Yi huffed and puffed, one hand gripping the armrest while the other pointed at Han Yunqing. Half-sitting and half-sitting, she was so angry that she couldn't speak. Qinxie was kind enough to save people. Just then, the young general came to give his thanks. The justice courts were simply trying to frame me. His Highness Duke of Qin has already stepped forward to hand over the justice courts to the Ministry of Appointments for Punishment, Han Yunqing replied righteously. Grand Concubine Yi raised a hand and raged, I don't care so much. You fell into the Empress Dowager's hands and were locked up in the imperial prisons. Where do you want me to put my face? Right now, that old woman must be laughing at my incompetence for marrying a good-for-nothing wife like you. Han Yunqing's face was full of disbelief. She always knew that Grand Concubine Yi cared about face, but never thought it was to this extent. This was completely unreasonable. She'd saved Mu Qinggu and punished Princess Changping and the rest. Did this count as losing face? Grand Concubine Yi alternated between sitting and standing, completely ignoring the kneeling Murong Wanru as she fidgeted uneasily. Suddenly, she stopped in front of Han Yunqing and narrowed her angry eyes. Chapter 39. Grand Concubine Yi walked in front of Han Yunqing and narrowed her eyes as she cursed. Han Yunqing, you scourge. Ever since the Empress Dowager married you off to the Duke of Qin, I've lost all face. On the day of the wedding, you even. Hearing that Grand Concubine Yi was going to settle old debts, Han Yunqing couldn't hold back. She couldn't be the type to swallow her anger and humiliation. Instead of adapting, she'd fight for her own dignity and rights. Han Yunqing loudly cut off Grand Concubine Yi's curses. Mufei, I don't think this is shameful at all. In fact, I think I gave face to the Duke of Qin's estate. For one thing, I let everyone know that I'm not useless trash. I don't know any medical skills, and I'm no worse than my father. For another, Princess Changping and the Justice Court official were both punished. The Empress Dowager hasn't said a word yet, nor did she save the official. They're the ones who lost face. All they can do is grit their teeth and swallow their blood. That's right, Mufei. Although it's wrong for sister-in-law to talk back to you, and many people know she's been locked up, she's right too. The Empress Dowager didn't pursue the matter either, did she? Murong Wanru coaxed hypocritically. Grand Concubine Yi seemed to have only heard half of the conversation. She glared viciously at Han Yunqing and shook her head. Han Yunqing, you really think you're something, huh? You're called Long Face by the Justice Court. Ha ha ha, I've finally seen something like this today. I've never seen anything as shameless as you. You still dare to talk back to me. As Grand Concubine Yi spoke, she retreated and sat down heavily. Word by word, she ordered, Gue Mama, beat for me. Today, I'll teach her what it means to long face, to lose face, and to slap the face. As soon as she finished, Gue Mama rolled up her sleeves and raised her hand to slap Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing immediately retreated. Grand Concubine Yi was simply unreasonable. She couldn't be reasoned with. As she retreated, she kept her guard up against Nanny Gue and coldly said, Imperial Mother, this matter was handled by the Duke of Qin. If Imperial Mother still feels embarrassed, you can look for the Duke of Qin. Gue Mama gave a start and didn't dare to approach again. Meanwhile, Grand Concubine Yi slapped the table and jumped to her feet, incredulous. Han Yunqing, you dare to use the Duke of Qin to threaten me? This concubine is speaking the truth. This concubine will reiterate for the last time, this concubine didn't lose face. The Duke of Qin handed the justice of the Supreme Court over to the Ministry of Personnel to deal with and had Princess Changping apologize to this concubine in public. Just now, the young general personally came to express his gratitude. If Imperial Mother doesn't believe it, she can go to the general's estate and ask. Moreover, Duke of Qin's appearance is telling the Empress Dowager and the others that with your son around, no one can bully the Duke of Qin's residence. Although it was useless to argue, Han Yunqing couldn't give up. Grand Concubine Yi cared about face, so this was the only way to resolve the situation. Grand Concubine Yi didn't retort immediately, but fell silent. But Murong Wanru spoke up again. Mufei, I heard that it was Princess Changping who complained to the Empress Dowager. For better or for worse, sister-in-law is the Duke of Qin's official wife. Princess Changping should call her imperial aunt out of respect for imperial uncle. Say, Princess Changping didn't put the Duke of Qin in her eyes at all. It's only right that the Duke of Qin punished her. That impudent, uneducated girl. Grand Concubine Yi flared up again, looking impatiently at Han Yunqing. Isn't it all because of you? You disgraceful thing. Even a junior can climb on top of your head to behave atrociously. If you're not trash, then what are you? What use are you? Why did you come back? Why don't you just die in the prisons? Out of sight, out of mind. Han Yunqing was speechless. Trying to reason with Grand Concubine Yi was like playing the lute to a cow. Grand Concubine Yi didn't give her a chance to argue, but angrily rebuked Gue Mama. What are you spacing out for? Beat her. Beat her hard. Even if the Duke of Qin comes today, he won't be able to protect her. Gue Mama rushed forward, but Han Yunqing pushed her aside. You're all unreasonable. Seeing this, Grand Concubine Yi was stunned. You dared to make a move. Mufei, you were the one who started it. I only want to give you a proper explanation. Han Yunqing wasn't afraid at all. You. Grand Concubine Yi was furious. No one had ever dared to be so impudent in front of her. Someone come. Someone come, lock this slut up in the firewood shed in the back courtyard. Immediately. The guards quickly rushed forward to detain Han Yunqing. This time, Han Yunqing couldn't push them away. Of course, she didn't struggle, much less beg for mercy. Her eyes were cold as she allowed the guards to drag her away. From the moment she stepped into the Duke of Qin's estate, she knew that Grand Concubine Yi would make a move one day. If she wanted to survive in this house, she had to have her own confidence. Seeing her expression, Grand Concubine Yi ignored her anger and chased after her, incredulous. What kind of thing is that? Who's she looking at? Little slut, does she think she can fly to a branch and become a phoenix after marrying in? Tell her, even if there's a red handkerchief, I can still take care of her. Murong Wanru caught up and said timidly, Mufei, this matter was also didn't I tell you I was in the side palace? Why couldn't you find me? Grand Concubine Yi was so angry that she even blamed Murong Wanru, who she doted on the most. Daughter knows her wrongs. Mufei, don't be angry, all right? It's not good for your body to be angry. Murong Wanru brought over a cup of tea, both docile and considerate. After drinking a few mouthfuls, Grand Concubine Yi finally calmed down and said mildly, it's not your fault. She's already been locked up, so she's long lost face. Grand Concubine Yi sat down and fell silent before asking, could it be that her medical skills are better than divine Dr. Han's? I heard that Imperial Physician Gu treated him with her. I don't know what happened, but she took all the credit. Mufei, as I see it, the general's estate and Imperial Physician Gu only gave you face. Murong Wanru really knew how to seize the chance to put in a good word. Grand Concubine Yi smiled coldly. They wouldn't dare to not give me face. Seeing that Grand Concubine Yi's mood wasn't as bad, Murong Wanru probed, Mufei, it was Big Brother who brought the person back. With sister-in-law locked up, what if Big Brother? Before she could finish, Grand Concubine Yi said self-righteously, what, she dared to raise a hand in front of me. If I don't teach her a lesson, she'll be pushing me next time. Does the Duke of Qin still want to protect her? As long as he dares to show up, I'll punish him too. Pass down orders. Without my orders, no one is allowed to let Han Yunqing out. Daughter understands. Murong Wanru sighed hypocritically, her eyes flashing with a smug smile. Han Yunqing, the woodshed can't compare to the hibiscus courtyard. As your little sister, I'll definitely take good care of you. That night, Han Yunqing was holed up in the woodshed, eating in big mouthfuls. Since she was already here, she might as well take things as they came. Actually, the current situation was much better than she expected. If it wasn't for Long Fei Ye's help that time with the red handkerchief, she would have been executed long ago. Even if she contradicted Grand Concubine Yi now, her crime didn't warrant death. She had plenty of ways to fight Grand Concubine Yi. But who knew if Long Fei Yi would interfere? Which side would he stand on? Why was she thinking of that guy again? Fine, such a cold person. If he didn't have a favor to ask of her, he probably wouldn't even say a word to her. The next day, the 3 meals were served as usual. Nothing happened for the rest of the day. But starting from the 3rd day, all the food was spoiled. Han Yunqing knew they were starting to make things difficult for her. She didn't say a word, but returned the food as it was. On the 4th and 5th day, the 3 meals were still spoiled. For 3 whole days, Han Yunqing was so hungry that she had no strength left. She lay in the pile of firewood, staring at the skies with wide, intelligent eyes. Her lips were very pale, but her smile was as beautiful as ever. Sometimes, admitting one's wrongs and begging for forgiveness could earn one a mouthful of rice. But here, it was impossible. Even if she ate the spoiled food, what awaited her would be even crueler torture. Moreover, if it wasn't her fault, she wouldn't admit it even if she was beaten to death. Han Yunqing wasn't a masochist. She cherished her life dearly. Since she dared to challenge Grand Concubine Yi so loudly, she must have prepared an excellent escape route. If it was spoiled, so be it. She pinched her fingers to calculate the time. Tomorrow, Princess Changping would definitely come. If she didn't find her to treat the poison by then, her face would be ruined. As long as Princess Changping came, Grand Concubine Yi would have to ask her to leave the woodshed. On the morning of the 6th day, Murong Wanru and Gue Mama emerged from the thicket after seeing a plate of spoiled rice delivered. She's been starving for 3 days and still hasn't made a sound. This girl's temper is quite stubborn, Gue Mama sighed with emotion. This time, Grand Concubine Yi wasn't planning to torture Han Yunqing to death. After all, she didn't have a good enough reason. She couldn't let her daughter-in-law starve to death because of a push. That would be hard to explain to her son, wouldn't it? Moreover, Grand Concubine Yi still didn't understand why the Duke of Qin would admit to the blood on the handkerchief. The Duke of Qin was a busy man. She hadn't seen him in days. Grand Concubine Yi waited for Han Yunqing to beg for mercy while waiting for her son to come back and complain. Sound? Does she want to beg for mercy? Imperial Mother won't be able to hear you. Murong Wanru's lovely and moving face revealed a trace of viciousness. Perhaps there'd be better chances in the future, but a long night meant more dreams. She, Murong Wanru, didn't like to wait. Looking at the firewood shed from a distance, Murong Wanru lowered her voice. Gue Mama, sister-in-law isn't in a good mood and isn't eating. For better or worse, she should drink some water. Otherwise, how could she be fine? So speaking, she turned to leave as she murmured, I heard that Red Crane's crown is the quickest poison to take effect. Gue Mama was slightly alarmed. She chased after her to coax her, but quickly stopped. Over the past few years, most of the people by Grand Concubine Yi's side had been bribed by Murong Wanru. Sooner or later, Grand Concubine Yi would arrange for Murong Wanru to be the Duke of Qin's concubine. The official consort was nothing more than a decoration. A concubine doted on by Grand Concubine Yi would be the future mistress of the Duke of Qin's estate. Thinking up to here, Gue Mama made a prompt decision to go out personally to buy poison. At noon, a dish was delivered along with a cup of water. If it wasn't for the water, Han Yunqing would have fainted from hunger long ago. Her current body wasn't the same as before she transmigrated. It was so sickly and arrogant that even she disdained it. But as soon as the dish was set down, the detox system began to violently alert her. Han Yunqing brought the cup of water over and sniffed it lightly. Immediately, she knew it was Red Crane's crown. This type of poison was very strong and common. She didn't even need to examine it to know the answer. Han Yunqing guessed that Grand Concubine Yi wouldn't kill her so lightly. This had to be Murong Wanru's handiwork. There was no food, and now there wasn't even any water to drink. Murong Wanru, if you really poison me, I'll definitely get my revenge. By the time afternoon came, Han Yunqing was cold, thirsty, and hungry. She was on the verge of collapse, but looked at the sealed walls with a faint smile. She was full of hope for the future. She knew she'd be able to leave soon. By nightfall, Grand Concubine Yi finally arrived at the woodshed with Murong Wanru's company. How many days has she been starving for? She couldn't have fainted, right? Grand Concubine Yi asked lazily. She thought that Han Yunqing must have fainted from hunger, which was why she hadn't begged for mercy. Perhaps so. Mufei, sister-in-law's body is weak. This punishment is enough, Murong Wanru coaxed kindly. How many times have I told you? As a person, especially as a woman, you can't be soft-hearted. You pity her, but do you think she'll appreciate it when she's that crafty? Grand Concubine Yi said helplessly. Murong Wanru silently lowered her head without a word. Her heart was filled with anticipation. Very soon, they'd no longer see the crafty woman Han Yunqing, but a corpse. Chapter 40. As long as Han Yunqing died, the position of the Duke of Qin's official consort would remain empty. Once Murong Wanru became a secondary consort, she could enjoy all the privileges of an official consort and forget the nightmare of being a servant girl. At last, they reached the door to the woodshed. Murong Wanru, who was always calm, couldn't wait any longer. As soon as the guard unlocked the door, she pushed her way in, full of anticipation. Inside the woodshed, there was an icy blue figure lying paralyzed in a pile of straw. She was so small and frail that she looked like she'd be blown away by the wind. Hee, I knew she'd fainted, Grand Concubine Yi gave a cold snort. Someone come, wake her up. The guard immediately brought over a bucket of water. Murong Wanru knew what was going on and suppressed her excitement. Mufei, the water's so cold. It's better if I go wake sister-in-law up. Grand concubine Yi looked at her helplessly. You're the only one with a soft heart. Murong Wanru rejoiced and quickly walked over, putting on an act as she pushed Han Yunqing. Sister-in-law, wake up. Sister-in-law, Mufei's here, sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, admit your wrongs to Mufei properly. Mufei will forgive you. As she pushed, she used the back of her hand to block the view of the people behind her. Her other hand couldn't help but tremble from excitement and fear. Still, she reached under Han Yunqing's nose to check her breathing. As her hand drew closer, Murong Wanru's heart shrank. She'd even thought of how to shout and say Han Yunqing was dead. But before Murong Wanru's hand could touch Han Yunqing's nose, Han Yunqing's eyes flew open and she stared at her guardedly. I'm not dead yet. What are you doing? Although she was already very weak, Han Yunqing hadn't lost consciousness. Her innate vigilance made her as vigilant as a hedgehog. Her phoenix eyes were as sharp as knives as she glared fiercely at Murong Wanru. Murong Wanru gave a start before she gave a frightened shriek and fell to the ground. Wanru! What's wrong? Grand concubine Yi cried out in alarm. Two guards immediately stepped forward to detain Han Yunqing. Grand concubine Yi propped Murong Wanru up as she looked disdainfully at Han Yunqing. What did you do to Wanru? I haven't eaten for a few days. Mother, what else do you think I can do to her? Han Yunqing asked sarcastically. Grand concubine Yi was at a loss for words. Her embarrassment turned to anger as she kicked over the spoiled rice on the side. Even the dogs in the estate can eat it. What, you can't eat it? Was he saying that she was worse than a dog? Han Yunqing struggled to prop herself up. Mufei, how about this concubine make a bet with you? Grand concubine Yi wasn't happy, but she was still curious. What else could you want? Tell me. Han Yunqing laboriously brought over a bowl of clear water from the side. Mufei, I bet that even the dogs in the residence won't drink this bowl of water. Murong Wanru grew alarmed at her words. Sister-in-law, how could you make a bet like this with Mufei? Mufei only brought up the dogs in a fit of anger. As a junior, you can't compete with your elders. So speaking, she immediately snatched Han Yunqing's bowl of water away and threw it in a huff. Seeing this, Han Yunqing laughed coldly in her heart. She was so weak that it was hard for her to even speak, much less argue with Murong Wanru. She only wanted to confirm her own guesses. Murong Wanru was so nervous that it was without a doubt that she was the one who poisoned her. Han Yunqing looked at her, her pale lips drawing up in a mocking smile. Murong Wanru felt like she'd been electrocuted as she hastily avoided her gaze. She took Grand Concubine Yi's hand. Mufei, don't be angry. Give sister-in-law a bit more time, she'll definitely know her wrongs. Han Yunqing smiled coldly. Murong Wanru was afraid she'd admit her wrongs, wasn't she? She was afraid her relationship with Grand Concubine Yi would improve. Murong Wanru acted like a peacemaker as she tugged at Grand Concubine Yi to leave. Compared to the submissive Murong Wanru who tried to curry favor with Grand Concubine Yi, Han Yunqing had a bargaining chip that none of the women of this era had. Cold as she looked at Murong Wanru, her lips curled up in a mocking smile. Right at this moment, Mother Gui suddenly rushed in from outside in a fluster, Imperial Concubine Dowager. Esteemed Imperial Concubine, it's bad. Bad news. What's the rush? Grand Concubine Yi asked unhappily. Esteemed Imperial Concubine, Princess Changping has come. Gui Mama replied urgently. At these words, Han Yunqing's smile deepened, making Murong Wanru fearful for no reason. Princess Changping. Grand Concubine Yi was astonished. This princess had been spoiled rotten by the Empress Dowager and Empress, but she'd never come to the Duke of Qin's estate. What was she doing here? One wouldn't visit a temple without a cause. It had been a long time since she'd had a face-off with the Empress Dowager's people. Grand Concubine Yi immediately became spirited as she threw Han Yunqing to the back of her mind. If she's come, then she's come. What are you panicking for? Even if the Empress Dowager comes, it's the same. Have her wait, I don't have time to see her. She elegantly waved her hand. I'll go soak in a hot bath first, then sleep. The hot springs at the estate are still the most comfortable. Seeing this, Gue Mama grew distressed. She didn't dare speak, but she had to. Esteemed imperial concubine, Princess Changping said, she said she wanted to see Qin Wangfei. What? At these words, everyone present was stunned. So she'd come to find Han Yunqing. Murong Wanru was greatly alarmed as she fearfully looked towards Han Yunqing. The self-righteous Grand Concubine Yi's face grew hot as she flew into a rage out of humiliation. She kicked Gue Mama. Useless thing, you don't even know how to make a report. What does Princess Changping want to see her for? Your servant doesn't know. Princess Changping's really anxious. If she doesn't see her tonight, she'll spend the night here, Gue Mama replied hastily. Only then did Grand Concubine Yi look towards Han Yunqing with a cold snort. What does Changping want to see you for? Han Yunqing withdrew her sarcasm and feigned weakness as she shook her head. She didn't reply. Grand Concubine Yi narrowed her eyes and stopped asking. Coldly, she instructed Gue Mama, go tell her that Qin Wangfei isn't free. Have her wait. The Empress Dowager actually dared to issue an arrest warrant for the Duke of Qin's men behind her back. How could she not seize the chance to show off her strength to Princess Changping? Seeing the crowd leave in a hurry, Han Yunqing finally let down her guard. She collapsed weakly in the grass, her brows knitted together in pain. She felt like her stomach was about to burst from hunger. Still, she encouraged herself from the bottom of her heart. Han Yunqing, you have to hold on. Bear with it a little longer, it'll be all right soon. Princess Changping couldn't wait any longer. She made a ruckus in the guest hall, but Grand Concubine Yi ignored her. What a Han Yunqing. This princess will go find Imperial Mother. Let's see if you'll see me. Princess Changping tossed out these words before storming off. Grand Concubine Yi was puzzled. Wanru, why do you think Princess Changping came? I find it strange too. She shouldn't be holding a grudge over the young general's matter, right? Murong Wanru guessed. She dares. I haven't even settled accounts with her yet, but she still has the face to come. Grand Concubine Yi immediately lost her temper. No matter why Princess Changping came to find Han Yunqing, Murong Wanru wouldn't give Han Yunqing a chance to leave the woodshed. She had to strike first to gain the upper hand. That night, she'd arranged for assassins. But who would have thought that in the dead of night, Princess Changping would come again? Moreover, she'd really brought the Empress with her. After all, the Empress was different from Princess Changping. She was the mother of a nation and the official wife of the Emperor. Grand Concubine Yi was still polite on the surface. Aya, what kind of wind blew you mother and son to my place tonight? Grand Concubine Yi entered the guest hall with a pleasant expression and called over a servant girl to bring out good tea. The Empress's status was higher than the Grand Concubine's, but out of filial piety, she still had to pay respects to Grand Concubine Yi. Of course, Grand Concubine Yi bowed in return. Princess Changping was already sulking as she stood unmoving on one side. Only then did Grand Concubine Yi notice Princess Changping's abnormality. She was wearing a white muslin bamboo hat that not only covered her face, but her entire head. Changping, this is... Grand Concubine Yi grew curious. Princess Changping grew agitated at her question. I'm fine. Changping, don't be rude, the Empress lectured unhappily, but her heart was filled with helplessness. Princess Changping didn't know what sort of filth she'd gotten into that night in the prisons, but after a day or two of itching on her feet and face, she couldn't scratch them. Who knew that she'd end up with ringworm? At first, it was only on her feet, but by the second day it had grown on her face in large patches. It looked very much like psoriasis, but all the imperial physicians said it wasn't. They could only confirm that it wasn't psoriasis, but no one could make a diagnosis. Some suspected it was poison, but none of the poison doctors had any results. Because of Mu Qingwu's incident, Princess Changping bore a grudge against imperial physician Gu and didn't seek him out. But since the day before yesterday, the ringworm on her feet had started to itch. Princess Changping couldn't take it anymore and scratched with all her might, tearing the skin with each scratch. The imperial physicians were scared out of their wits and said it'd definitely leave a scar. Princess Changping grew anxious and could only set aside her grudges to find imperial physician Gu. He said it was probably poison that he couldn't treat, so he suggested she seek out Han Yunqing instead. Princess Changping flipped out on the spot and said it was impossible. But since yesterday, the ringworm on her face had started to itch as well. It'd leave a scar if she scratched it. Once it flared up, Princess Changping rolled on the ground in discomfort, not daring to scratch it. She didn't want to be disfigured. Although she didn't want to accept it and didn't trust Han Yunqing's medical skills, she was already at the end of her rope. She couldn't give up on her last ray of hope, so she could only sullenly seek out Han Yunqing. Grand Concubine Yi's lips rose to a mocking smile. This girl's personality is just like that. I'm used to it. The Empress was the one asking for help, so she didn't dare retort. She smiled and said, Grand Concubine Yi, is Qin Wangfei not at home? Changping said she came looking for her last night, but didn't see her. Grand Concubine Yi didn't answer, but asked, do you have business with Yunxi? The Empress was about to speak when Princess Changping stopped her. She didn't want Grand Concubine Yi to know her face was ruined. The more people who knew, the more people would laugh at her. If Grand Concubine Yi laughed at her on the spot, she'd lose even more face. I just have business with her. Grand Concubine Yi, hurry and have her come out. I have important business to take her to the palace, Princess Changping said willfully. Grand Concubine Yi exhaled slightly and didn't ask any more questions. She said mildly, so it's like that. But Yunxi and the Duke of Qin went out on a tour. What? Then where did they go? Princess Changping was alarmed as she took a few steps forward, agitated. Aya, Changping, you know your imperial uncle Qin's temper. He never reports to his mother where he goes, Grand Concubine Yi said helplessly. Princess Changping's heart burned with impatience. Then at this moment, the Empress suddenly grabbed Princess Changping's hand. She was the Empress after all, so she knew Grand Concubine Yi was making things difficult even before she arrived. Princess Changping was about to speak when the Empress tightened her grip and scolded her. Changping, how many times have I taught you not to be so impetuous and impudent? Your business is important and urgent, but Qin Wangfei isn't here. Aren't you making things difficult for Grand Concubine Yi? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.